Good morning and welcome to the February 6th, 2018 meeting of the Volusia County Council. At this time, we'll open the meeting for public comment, and we have you all approach the dais, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind. And please remember that we will not respond from the dais, but any questions or concerns that you may have, we can get back with you later on those questions and concerns. The first speaker is Robert Money.
Hello. I'm Robert Money. I'm at 229 Oakley Drive in DeLand. Okay, this is my 4th appearance, and by far the most serious. The federal court has been informed of the continuing violations of the United States Constitution. The court acknowledged by docket entry February 1st, Robert Money versus Volusia County. I am here to outline some of the many victims of the Volusia County Organized Crime Sheriff's Department. Not all deputies are involved. Akeem Birch, murdered convenience store worker, complained and reported on crack cocaine trafficking. As in my situation, the criminals were tipped off. Murder has been their intent for me, as well as set up on false charges and discredit. Derek Cruz, murdered by Volusia County Organized Crime Sheriff's Department after giving West Volusia Narcotics Unit actionable information on Mike Henry's cocaine trafficking front business. I was told they were busy and prioritized toward high level. I gave them a major network and realized they were the network, and I was now their target. Cruz died over half a pound of marijuana. Ed Miller, murdered by Volusia County Organized Crime Sheriff's Department. I believe and will seek to prove a connection to my situation. Suspicion made greater by a missing report involving Port Orange Police Department and myself. Volusia County Consolidated Call and Response Center is a tool of corruption. Albert Pravat, corrections officer, originator of VolusiaExposed.com, came forward with similar allegations as mine, just as their attempt with me and the false bomb threat. Pravat was set up and fired, losing his retirement and income. He died of a heart attack. John Casaburo, member of the Volusia County Republican Executive Committee, has a similar experience as mine with the Volusia County Organized Crime Sheriff's Department. His neighborhood was infested with criminals and drug traffickers. Instead of assistance from law enforcement, he was targeted for retribution. He has litigated against the county and Ben Johnson. I am the continuing target of taxpayer-funded criminal air support, also known as Volusia County Sheriff Helicopters. Okay, they are the center of this network. I've been observing this for 9 years and been target. The reasons I am able to be before you now are: 1, I have stopped functioning and isolated myself. I am sustained on accumulating debt. As a threat by me to organized crime network has become real, my reaching out to the federal court. I'd like to thank the Civil Air Patrol and DeLand PD Officer Tom Gillen.
There's
a lot more.
Thank you, Robert. Okay. Bill Nostrao, and I know I mispronounced that last name, but I got Bill right.
Good morning, distinguished council members, staff, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bill Nanstill. I live on Stone Island. I'm here to speak about the flooding that we experienced with the most recent hurricane and the impact on our road system and on our community. I've lived on Stone Island for about 16 years now. 15 of those years I've served on the board of directors of the Stone Island Homeowners Association. 10 of those years, approximately, I served as the association's president. I'm currently a licensed community association manager in the service of Stone Island. I just wonder if I could indulge you for a minute, if we could just have a show of hands or the Stone Island people identify themselves. Thank you. In the 16 years that I've lived there, I've been through 3 floods. in our community, we have about 5 miles of private roads in addition to the public road coming into the subdivision. And of those roads, about 1.5 miles are under 7 feet in elevation. And because of that, every time we have a flood, they go partially underwater. In the most extreme case, I think in the higher flood, we had as much as 2 feet of water on some of the roads. But typically, it's more like 8, 10, 12 inches, something like that, but still quite an impediment. This imposes an extreme hardship on the community, and it's also a public safety issue. Fire trucks can't really get in to respond to an emergency, the same with an ambulance. We have people that require oxygen. The trucks can't get in to deliver that. Propane, people run out of propane, and the propane companies won't come in through the flooded roads. We have one resident, I think his wife is here, who is on dialysis and requires almost daily support, and that was somewhat disrupted. We have people with ruined vehicles. The sewer didn't function as well as it could have. Residents have been forced to vacate their premises because they can't get the most basic human services. At this juncture, I think it'd be very appropriate to compliment the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Chitwood. They put forth an extraordinary effort in providing special vehicles and almost round-the-clock patrols. We can't say enough good about that. I would say the same about the sewer department. Alan Ferguson was there almost every day and put forth an extraordinary effort to try and keep our sewers up and running, but in some cases it was a losing battle. I do have a narrative here from one of our residents who wanted to attend. Her name is Gail France. I'll read it, but I think I'll hold it to the end because I don't want to go over my 3 minutes.
You're about at the end, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, we'll go on then. We would propose to raise the roads by about up to a minimum of 7 feet. That would include that 1.5 miles of road.
Thank you. Your 3
Pardon,
minutes.
sir?
Your 3 minutes have expired.
Oh.
So,
All right. Well, if I could just close by saying that
thank you very much.
we would
3 minutes is
appreciate
up.
any assistance that we could
Thank
get
you.
in accomplishing that.
I'll
Thank
be
you,
happy to talk with you after this. Juliet Milligan. Just please understand that we're the same way with anyone speaking for the 3 minutes, so that it's not showing partiality to some that may give an extension. So it's nothing personal on anything of you or your issue. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Julie Milligan, and I'm from Stone Island, 460 Warrior Trail. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My husband is one of the men he was talking about. We've been Stone Island residents for a little over 12 years. And 4 years ago, my husband had a stroke. He's been recovering ever since, but we have a nurse that comes to the house every morning for 3 hours during the week to help give him basic help with activities of daily living. And we also, he has physical therapists come to the house 2 to 3 times a week to help with mobility and balance. And he unfortunately had kidney failure last year and is now on dialysis at home for 9 hours every day. So we have to have 1,000 pounds of dialysis fluid delivered every 4 weeks. During this flood period, we had very much difficulty because we could not get the nurse, couldn't get in, and his therapist couldn't get in. And the trucks to deliver the dialysis fluid had very great difficulty getting in due to a neighbor actually who helped us. We went through his property and guided the truck, but they couldn't see the roads. It was quite deep. So we didn't plan for this to happen. We moved there, of course. Now that it has happened, it would be an enormous help if the worst parts of the deep roads were raised so that help could get in and we could get his material. They offered us, in the case of Baxter Medical, who delivers the medical supplies, they told us that we were going to have to ferry that supplies from the fire station, which is 1.5 miles away. I'm 70, and the boxes weigh 30 pounds apiece. It's 1,000 pounds, and I would have a very hard time doing that. So, as I said, we were fortunate. A neighbor lent us his driveway, and we got the truck around by hand walking it. It would just be a really big help if we did do that the next time. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you for making me aware. Debbie Crunk Forrester. known as Ormond Strong.
We have some little packets for each of you also. Do you want to hand out to Sue? Okay, Debbie Craig Forrester, 175 North Young Street. We're here to update you on a few of the upcoming Volusia County Veterans events Ormond Strong is hosting. First, we want to thank you for the proclamation, Heather, that you guys wrote and Billy delivered at our 2017 J.J. Martin Military Veteran Service Member First Responder Family Appreciation Day event. It was a huge success. The following day, we secured the date for this year's, which is 8/18/18. There are over 150,000 female veterans in the state of Florida. To date, there is no ceremony in the country other than a symposium sponsored by the VA honoring all women who have served in the U.S. military. Volusia County will be the first. In addition to the J.J. Martin Leadership Awards, at our event, we will host the first Women Who Serve Appreciation Ceremony, honoring all women who have served in the U.S. military or as a first responder. Heather? We will honor these women, provide resources, and in partnership with the Washington, D.C. Women's Memorial, which is right outside of Arlington Cemetery, the women's stories will be archived and recorded in the Washington, D.C. Memorial. The memorial is sending an ambassador to our event. We are, again, having full support from both Senator Nelson, Senator Rubio, the U.S. Senate, and, believe it or not, the White House. We are inviting the 4 congresswomen who have served in the U.S. military. We are commissioning the first Women Who Serve medallion to be awarded to each of our honorees. In addition to the Washington, D.C. Women's Memorial, the John Brinkley Veterans Museum will hold an event honoring these women who served and archiving their stories. With that said, we're here to invite each of you on the council and the public to the John Brinkley Museum, February 24th at 1 p.m. for a salute to Iwo Jima Remembrance and Dedication Ceremony. We will honor those who fought in World War II. February 23rd, 1945 marks the date the iconic photo of the 6 Marines raising the U.S. flag atop Mount Suribachi during the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II was taken by Joe Rosenthal. Ormond Strong will be dedicating our life-size Iwo Jima display to the Veterans Museum. We made it out of PVC pipe and paper mache. It was our float for the Ormond Beach Parade. We designed it, want everybody to remember everybody deployed during the holiday and season. We're encouraging everybody that comes to the event to bring a picture of a loved one or a friend who served in World War II for our remembrance wall. In your packet, you'll also find the story of the 4 chaplains who served in World War II, died so their comrades could live. We honored them in the anniversary of their death this past Super Bowl weekend. In closing, I would like to thank the council and let you know how much we appreciate and the honor and respect you have shown to all who serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there anyone else that has filled a card out? If not, no. Okay. Did we not recognize Linda Moore? I guess we do now. Sorry about that.
I'm here straight from the hospital where my husband just had hip replacement
Thank you.
surgery. How are you? Linda Moore. I live at 1415 Stone Trail on Stone Island. I'm a new resident there, so the flood was exciting for me. Many of the people behind me have survived many of the floods. I want to read just a brief excerpt from an email that I received from one of those residents, Cheryl Class. She's an administrator over at Volusia Hospital, and she says, in 1994, my grandmother died. Emergency vehicles, you see, are not allowed to drive in a flood. You cannot drive. If you have an ambulance or a fire truck, it is not permitted by the county for them to drive in the flood. So her son and her had to wrap her dead grandmother's body, strap it to the top of the truck, and drive it to the funeral home themselves. Envision that. We are not asking for a beautification process. I have been lobbying with Ron DeSantos' office now for 2 months. He directed us back to you. He tells us that we are a private community. What dictates a private community? Every community, when it starts out, is built by a developer. And then at some point, you know, we all become part of a county. We're all paying county taxes. We have over 5 miles of roads on Stone Island. We have less than 1.5 miles that needs to be raised 18 inches. So that the next time we have a flood, and we will, we can get in and out. Vehicles can get in and out. Emergency vehicles can get in and out. You see here today before you, most of us are seniors, but we have young families on that island. We have a young sheriff who just moved in with his 3 young children. What is that life worth? What if one of our children gets sick or hurt and an ambulance is not allowed to come through those floodwaters? We're asking today for the council to please consider, if you cannot help us, direct us to who can help get us some money to raise less than 1.5 miles of roads up 18 inches is all we are asking. We'll maintain the roads. We've always maintained our own roads. And our homeowners association dues pays for that. But we don't have enough money to raise that little 1.5 miles, 18 inches. Please help us, all right, so that we don't have a disaster and so that we don't have to carry any more dead bodies out on tops of cars. Thank you so much, and thank you all for your service. We appreciate you hearing us today.
Thank you, Linda. Now then, I think that is all the cards, and I apologize, Linda, I filed your card already. With that, we will close the public participation portion of the meeting, and we will resume back at 10 o'clock.
Hello? Oh, it went bye-bye? What happened? Oh, there we go.
Jeff.
Oh, good morning, sir. You're live here in the chambers. If you can stand by, we're going to call Mr. Patterson and get you both connected, okay?
Okay.
All right. Stand by. All right. Go ahead and add people. And PP. Yep. And then go ahead and hopefully that will. So you see the
Hello, this is Pat Patterson. Please leave your name and number at the sound of the tone, and I will return your call as soon as possible. Thank you.
At the tone,
Dr. Lowry? Dr. Lowry? Yes, they'll be able to hear each other. I did a test last night. Dr. Lowry, are you there? Well,
Hello, there we are. We will begin the meeting in less than 30 seconds, so everyone please be ready at 10 o'clock. We will start the meeting.
okay. Yes, we did. That's okay. Let's make sure he answers. Yep.
Good morning. It is 10 o'clock. Am I on?
We need a couple minutes, please.
You mean I'm going to have to start the meeting after 10 o'clock?
Mr. Patterson?
Hello.
Okay, we're going to put you on hold. Just hold a minute while we get a hold of Dr. Lowry, please.
Okay, thank you.
No coughing allowed. Sorry for the delay.
There, Jeff?
Dr. Lowry?
Okay.
Pat Patterson?
All right.
Mr. Patterson?
I'm here.
Okay, we're good, sir.
Okay. Good morning. It is 10:01, and we will call the February 6th meeting of the Volusia County Council to order. And at this time, we will have the invocation given by Reverend Robert Baird of Daytona Beach Christian Church. And I ask the council to stand and be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. We come in gratitude and prayer to you, Almighty One, Creator and Sustainer, Giver of all good things. As we gather today to exercise the freedom of democracy and to engage in the business before us, remind us of your sovereignty and guide our decisions with your wisdom. As fellow citizens and neighbors, remind us of our oneness in you and in the call on our lives to live in civility and peace. And as we live our lives, may we seek the things that truly bind us together rather than the things that separate us. Holy One, help us to fully recognize that all people of whatever race or background, religion, creed, or conscientious practice, we belong to you and we belong to each other. Prompt us to reach out in love to our brothers and sisters near and far. Help us especially to remember that as we gather about symbols of faith as well as reminders of the human rights upon which this country is founded, each reveals to us the respect and love we are called to afford one another. Through your life-giving and sacrificial example, may we find the strength needed to tackle the challenges of this day and for every occasion in life. This we pray in your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have the roll call, please? Let me make a comment before we do. Those of you who noticed that I fist bumped, we have two council members who are going to be listening and attending in the meeting online. Both have the flu, and I appreciate them not being here to spread it any further than it's going. We all appreciate that, and we'll work through it, but they are on the line, so when you call the roll call, they will respond that they are in attendance.
Mr. Chair, I was informed by Jeff, because it's the first time we've ever done this where we had two people on the line.
Right.
So we'll probably have to be relatively definitive about asking them if they have comments.
I know, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Lowry?
Dr. Lowry, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson?
Here.
Ms. Post?
Here.
Ms. Wheeler? Ms. Cusack? Ms. Denny's?
Here.
And Mr. Kelly?
Here. And at any time that you lose us, I guess you call somebody and call Jeff, and if we happen to lose them, either one of them during the course of the meeting, we will have to call timeout until we can get them back online. Mr. Deneen, any comments on the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. By the way, both Mr. Patterson and Mr. Lowry told me they knew specifically they were going to comment on the item of the impact fees.
Okay.
So we know. I'm asking that we actually do a separate vote. I want to pull A for a separate discussion, separate vote on A. I'd like to bring forward, let's see.
Does any council member wish to pull anything on the consent?
No.
Okay. Let's
And
go
I
ahead. Let's
I
go
want to
ahead.
have a comment on P.
On which one?
P. So if you'd like to do P first, we'll make a comment on that.
We'll make a comment on P, and then we will.
Not pulling P.
I understand
P
that.
would just be a
Just
comment.
make your comment. That'd be perfect.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Patterson.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Patterson,
Yes,
yes.
I'd like to comment on item I, Indigo, item I.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm Judy Grimm, Road and Bridge and Stormwater Director. Just want to make a comment on item P, which is the Gemini Springs baffle boxes. This project is a direct result from your 2014 County Council workshop from water quality projects, where you identified that Gemini Springs was one of your priority water bodies. This is the installation of 2 nutrient separating stormwater treatment baffle boxes. They will treat stormwater and groundwater in the Dirksen Drive area, where we have some county stormwater outfalls. Back in December, you had Miss Abby Johnson from the Water Management District was here to present us with one of her big checks for 50% of the construction cost. The item before you today is a grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, which pays the other 50% of the construction cost. And we will be matching those funds with Stormwater Utility for engineering services. We're expecting the bids to be received in March, start construction late April, early May, and be completed in August. And that's
Thank you.
short.
Thank you, Judy.
Mr. Patterson, would you like to comment on item
Aye.
I?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. I just want to give a big shout out to the county staff and especially Tim Bailey and his department on the Lake George, the park that we're going to be building over there. And it's taken 4 years to get to this point, but there's been a lot of involvement, and they have really worked with me and stayed on this project, which is going to be a real heck of a deal up in the northwest quadrant of Volusia County. My people up there, they're really, this Pearson Town Council and the folks in Seville are really excited about this park being created up there. So again, I just want to thank Tim Bailey and the work that he's done and his staff and county staff on putting this whole together. It's been a long journey, but I'm glad it's going to be coming about pretty soon. We're looking probably later this year or early part of next year to dedicate that park. And thanks a lot, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to add to this to the council, is that all this is being done with, as you can see, fine money and local impact fees and no general fund money.
And I also want to add, I want to thank the two individuals that donated the land to us. That's over $1 million worth of land that was donated to the county council and to the people of Volusia County. So I want to thank them also.
Okay. Dr. Lauer, did you want to comment on any of the items?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda absent item A, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Denny, second by Wheeler. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. And we want to read item A. It's file number 5297. Somebody make a motion for that, please. Item A. We get it on the floor.
Do a motion for approval?
Well, you can approve it, and we're going to discuss it. Now, you want to discuss it before we bring it on the floor, that's fine.
Yes.
Let's do that. We'll have Mr. Carl's here and also John Booker. Rick, you introduce John, and then it's the contract for our lobbying services.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Rick Carl, Director of Aviation Economic Resources. I'm here today with John Booker, we're going to be handing off the legislative activities and the government affairs activities to Mr. Booker, who's comes from us via a number of different agencies. We know most as John Micah's aide, who, when he was working with Mr. Micah, he delivered the goods on the airport. We got a lot of money for the airport during his time, so I'm really honored to introduce John and let him discuss our federal lobbying effort.
Good morning. John Booker. I'm not sure if my title is Government Affairs or Legislative Affairs, but we're going to figure that out here pretty quickly. Matter before you is a renewal of a federal lobbying contract. Jamie Pericola is here just to discuss a little bit about what has happened in Washington, what might happen in Washington, and give you an update of his efforts. Staff is recommending approval of the renewal of the contract for 1 year. So Jamie Pericola is here from the Seaward Square Group.
Thank you, John. Hello, members of council. James Pericola. Nice to be with you all. Good to see you again. I'm excited. I think we're making progress. We came here a few years ago saying we were going to change things and change the approach, and I think we certainly have.
It's no longer memos that nobody reads. I think, I don't know, Ms. Denny's, if you want me calling you on the weekend anymore, but I think we're making progress, and I look forward to working with the rest of the council because we are making progress in a number of areas. On commercial space, we've identified a number of areas. 4F is still alive and well, and that offer stands, Ms. Denny's, that we can bring some of the fish and wildlife people down. But unfortunately, the opportunity, there'll be others with the Space Council, but we've identified a number of opportunities, and Ms. Denny's is playing a large role both here and in Washington, and I think you're heading there this week as well. No ice storm. No ice storm with no snow, I think is the goal. I don't know if we can fix that, but on FEMA, we were very involved with Mr. Rechtenwald, and part of what we do is we're called facilitators by other people we represent, and part of it is if there's a question or if there's something outstanding, we can get the answer usually. I mean, that's the best way to think about what we do. When the director of state FEMA affairs, nobody could get him on the phone, we were able to do that in a day and just try to be part of the solution and try to figure out ways to build on what's going on here. The fact that Mr. Rechtenwald and the council was able to put together all of the cities working together and no other county in the state was doing that, that's significant. And those are the types of things that we should be highlighting. And we've certainly offered some suggestions, and we look forward to working with you on that. And on the legislative side, we were able to accomplish something that's very significant. And I hope you weren't following the tax bill because it's probably not where you should be spending your time. But it is significant in terms of Volusia County. Private activity bonds was a major issue, and we spotted this before we really knew that the county would be interested, but we expected that it would be, and through some creative maneuvering and some standing on shoulders with others, we were able to get it stripped out of the House bill, or out of the Senate bill, and now it's signed into law that tax exempt status is protected, and specifically to Volusia County, and Don has been amazing in this, and it was really a team effort, but that is a major move forward because that's real dollars for Volusia County, and especially as we talk about the $1.5 trillion that the president has proposed, they're looking to rely on public-private partnerships, and if you don't have those tax-exempt abilities or mechanisms to fund, it's going to get really tight in a hurry. So I was told to be brief and to answer questions, but I'm very proud to announce the private activity bond success that we had as a team, all of us, and I hope you're aware of that and happy to answer any questions.
Deb?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thanks.
You're casual today, so I guess that's,
I'm just Deb.
Okay.
That's good. Good morning, Jamie. The transportation bill, you're gonna, that President Trump's gonna try to roll out here, it sounds really good. Was 1.3 trillion or 3.1 trillion? It's in the trillions. Anything over 1 trillion is really big. But the private partnerships that's key with going forward at the federal level, well, that sounds really good. They're only going to fund 20% of federal projects. Now, make a local impact. You take Orange Avenue Bridge. That's all federal dollars. What if the match is only 20% of federal and we come up with a balance? So keep the perspective where we're going when we hear these numbers, and it sounds really good. When you drill down on it and you look what the impact to local governments, the county and the state, can you imagine if we had to, we wouldn't have built it. We would not have built the Orange Avenue Bridge without doing some kind of major bond referendum or having some huge funding issue. So keep an eye on that for us.
Absolutely.
That's really big. We might want to weigh in on that and see how that's gonna go, because that'll have a huge direct impact on transportation. Yet again, in infrastructure, that's key.
And private activity bonds, again, I mean, roughly 1.5 times more expensive if that had been stripped out. So it would be even more pressure if that wasn't there. So as markets tighten and money gets more expensive, as we're seeing already, again, I'm proud of that joint effort because that's a big deal, especially as more and more pressure is being put on state and local communities.
Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the federal lobbying services contract with Seward Square Group.
motion made by Denny, seconded by Cusack. And I have two other people who still want to comment. Ms. Post?
Jamie, I just wanted to, first of all, say that the communication has been good, I've found in the past. Whenever I've reached out to you, you've been very responsive and answered my questions, so I want to thank you for that. And I know that anytime I've asked to meet with you, you have been willing to meet at last minute, so I appreciate that. And I would like to see a little bit more communication in the future, so that we're all on the same page and aware of your efforts, because I know you are working hard for us, and we should be certainly letting everyone else know how hard you're working and keeping up with that as well. So let's do that. And can you speak to some of the things that you're currently working on?
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much, and certainly would like to. Some of you have not even really had a chance to spend any time with, and would love to do that. And I think the addition of John is a huge move forward, and the team we've been working with, it only augments that team. So encouraged by that, and certainly welcome, anytime we're able to get together, and would love to do quarterly, weekly, whatever you all would like to do within the structure that exists. Would love to do that. I mean, obviously following the infrastructure, they're about as far apart as they can be right now, and trying to figure out where they are. I mean, it's a bit of whack-a-mole right now in Washington, as you know. I used to think that you all got into it pretty aggressively here but I can't even tell you from one day to the next, and anybody that does is probably lying to you. But no, certainly following that, ongoing issues with, transportation is really the focus right now, which I think is encouraging. But there's just so much work that still needs to be done. But that's going to be the focus going forward in the next couple of months.
Thank you.
Mr. Deneen.
After you approve this, while Jamie's here and John's in the audience, after you approve this.
Okay. I was looking for Sheldon to come up because I know Amy pronounces her name. You who watch Big Bang, her name sounds very similar to yours, and I was looking for Sheldon. You don't watch Big Bang. Huh? How do you pronounce your last name?
Pericola.
Hers is Ferricola. So I'm looking out there for her. So, and I think you summed it up. I think with John's addition, I think that's going to give us the link and the connection that we work through, because he will be able to relay our concerns, working with staff and so forth, and any concerns that we may have. I think that's going to be a great addition, and him having worked in that type of similar position before, or even a little bit better than that position. So is there any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimously.
Oh, she has a comment.
You certainly do. Before the vote or after? Okay, sorry, Ms. Cusack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add my remarks to Jamie and what we have accomplished in the time that we've had you on board. I think it's really imperative that we maintain this relationship because, it's something in the water there that we need to be mindful of. So I think we're very pleased to have you on board, and I think the partnership with John will help us to better collaborate and get our ideas and your input into us so that we might be functioning more in unity, if you will, because there are some things that happen that we are not aware of. So in order to earn your keep, you have to make sure that you keep us informed of what's going on. So I look forward to another year of your services, and I'm proud to have you on board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We did call the vote. We did call the vote. There was no objection, correct? That's what I thought. Rick.
Mr. Chair, Rick Carl, if I could just comment on one thing that Jamie is currently working on, just to make sure that we're on the same page here, and that is the federal government, the Secretary of Transportation has announced with the President that they are pursuing a UAS, Unmanned Aerial System pilot program. So the various communities around the country are competing for this. The state of Florida, we are working very closely in my department with Space Florida, the DOT. Embry-Riddle is one of the lead academic agencies with this, so you're going to hear a lot about this. The emphasis on this program. It's a federal program, but it's to integrate unmanned systems into the national airspace system. And the emphasis in Florida's effort is going to be with emergency management. So I think you're going to see your staff and the leadership of the county manager, we're going to be bringing all the various components together to work in harmony with law enforcement agencies and emergency responders and all the agencies that deal with emergency management. So it's going to be a real lobbying effort in Washington to keep that going. So we've already dialed in with Embry-Riddle hand in glove. So just by way of information.
Mr. Chair, while we have these astute people here in the audience and at the microphone, I thought it'd be good to take out a minute and let Ms. Denny's talk with Mr. Booker about the travel she wants to take to D.C. to represent us and make sure the council's in support of her traveling up there. Ms. Denny's?
Well, thank you. Just last year, Rick and I went to D.C. For the FAA Commercial Aerospace Conference with Space Florida this year. Been offered that same opportunity, of course, representing council. This year, Rick has chosen not to go. It's kind of a last-minute thing. We were behind the 8 ball. It kind of got past us this year. So, council, with that, we are going to go to D.C. to represent Volusia County. Of course, Embry-Riddle will be there in exactly the program that Rick is talking about. And that's also the request that we had sent a letter of support for to Space Florida and U.S. Who'd we send it to, Rick? We sent it to everybody. Embry-Riddle, Space Florida, all the players. That council stands ready to support this endeavor at Embry-Riddle and our airport and Volusia County. So there's a lot on the board. It's like we went from the Flintstones to the Jetsons overnight on some of this stuff, because it's happening. It's not if, it's when. We're in it. And so appropriate, because they're going to launch the Falcon Heavy today.
Right.
SpaceX is going up this morning, so we'll lift off after they do, if you will. But anyway, council, I'm going to go to D.C. to represent you. John's going to stay longer than I am, so I guess he can reconnect with some of his existing connections up there for us, for Volusia County. So hopefully it will be a very worthwhile trip.
Thank you.
I thank you for being willing to go. It's going to be almost 80 degrees here today and tomorrow. You're welcome to go up there, and I'm sure they're going to have another ice storm.
They are. It's actually, Rick and I got supposedly snowed in last time with no snow, but they canceled everything. Now there's an ice storm and sleet coming through tomorrow morning. So.
You have my blessings and my sympathy.
Thank you.
There's no objection to her going. Thank you. And John, thank you for taking time to stay up there. I think it'd be worthwhile. With that, we will move to item 2.
Mr. Chair, Clay Irvin will come forward. This is the discussion that the council, Ms. Denny originally brought this up with the idea that we should at least review and look into this whole issue of impact fees, and it goes beyond impact fees. It gets into prop share, and I think what the council wanted, and that's why this is just a discussion item. We weren't planning on taking action today unless the council wants to do something after they go through this. But a big part of it, I think, was to be transparent about what actually impacts the home building industry. And so what Clay's going to do is walk you through and have a lively discussion about where we are and where we might go.
Okay.
Clay?
Let me just verify that Mr. Patterson and Mr. Lowry are still there. Are you both still there?
I'm here.
That was Pat.
I'm still here.
Okay, both of you are still here. And Mr. Patterson, when I know you have a comment on this as we get to that point or question, so you'll be first on the list as soon as we ask for questions, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clay Irvin, Director of Growth and Resource Management. At the last meeting, there was a request to bring forward a discussion on impact fees. Your patience with us, because this is a detailed issue. We've got some slides to go through. Hopefully I'll be able to get through them quickly but effectively. On pages 2-2 through 2-5, we basically give you the overview of what impact fees are, where they can be spent, how they are calculated. The critical points that we want to make sure as you're going through there is, first and foremost, We've initiated impact fees going back to 1986 with our thoroughfare roads. We came forward in 1990 with our parks. In 1989, we had fire rescue, and in 97, we have schools. So we have a long history of utilizing impact fees. What exactly are impact fees? These are fees that are charged of residential and non-residential development to cover the cost of the impacts resulting from that development. The critical point we want to make sure everyone understands is that these have to be spent on new improvements to address impacts from growth. We cannot use impact fees for maintenance. We cannot use them for repair and replacement. We cannot use them for salaries. All they can be used for is either acquisition of land or construction of facilities that are tied to growth. And that is a critical element, because when you look at what has to be done in order to make sure your impact fees are valid based on court cases, it has to be rationally related to the improvements that are needed to address growth, and it has to be geographically located so that it can be paired to that impact. Having said that, we have 4 zones for our impact fees. As you can see, they're basically tied to a quadrant area that represents the northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest areas. Impact fees collected in these areas have to be spent in these areas. So that means impact fees that we collect in the southwest quadrant cannot be used in the northeast quadrant. The one point of clarification is that we do allow for impact fee credits to be traded between zones 1 and 2, which are on the east side, and on 3 and 4 for the thoroughfare roads. How do we calculate impact fees? Throughout court cases and other things, what we've been able to do is come up with basically a formula-driven way of analyzing how a development will impact our facilities. So with it roads, parks, water, sewer, schools, roads, what you will see is that they've figured out one house will impact a road this much, and it comes up with a cost. And in that cost, it's balancing out between whether or not you have a dedicated funding source, other things as well that help reduce the cost, but it will also factor in how much materials cost, travel distances, other things. So it's basically a formula-driven way to ensure that we are properly calculating what the impacts will be. You will hear us talk about 2 critical elements. The first one that I want to discuss are exemptions. The easiest way to understand an exemption is that it's on the ground. This is something that was either in place prior to the adoption of our impact fees or was built subsequent to our impact fees and paid for it. Now, if they want to come back, they being the landowner, and redevelop that property and replace it, for example, tear down a single-family home and put a single-family home up, we will not charge them impact fees because they're already accounted for. So they are exempt. If I have an office building, say 10,000 square feet, and I want to add on another 10,000 square feet, I will not pay for that original, but I will pay for the addition. So that first 10,000 square feet was exempted. The second issue we want to talk about are credits. Because this is a capital-based project, we have specific needs in our plans. So if a developer meets with the county and we identify a capital improvement that they can do, we will give them credit for it. For example, if I am putting in a roadway because my project needs a 2-lane road and it's on our thoroughfare map and the county staff and council agree, that developer can then provide the land, provide the stormwater, and build the road. And we will give them a dollar for dollar credit for those improvements. So I want you to keep those in mind as we go through this.
I need to ask a question about that, Mr. Chief.
Sorry. Sure.
About the credits, did we not say as a council that we would not get into negotiation with credits at this time?
In a way, what happened was.
We had some that we were already committed to.
Correct.
But new credits, I thought we would not be doing them.
Well, what we did is, if they build something that we have on the plan, we're required to give credits. But here's what happened. What Joyce is talking about is that it was out of control when she got on the council. And part of what was bringing it back into control was to change our thoroughfare plan and to change the plans that we had, which were all requiring us to give credits where people were developing roads that we had no ability to fund. Those roads may not have been a high priority for this. In other words, the original plan was more of a wish list than it was reality. Right, Joyce? And then the council said, this has to end because the balance of credits were going through the roof, and you were getting pieces of road that maybe were important someday, but they were not a priority now. And so you were taking that money and putting it in places that we would maybe not use for 20 years and weren't funded in places where we needed to. So we changed all the plans, and yes, Joyce, that really made an enormous difference on what credits we would be required. Now the only time we would be doing credits is on a road we want, rather than on roads that we really couldn't use until long into the future. So it radically changed the way we deliver credits. The other thing is, Joyce, you might be thinking of, is that the council made a big decision, which was if someone does a single development, the credits are associated in a lot of cases with where the property is. We now have allowed that if you do a single development, you can move the credits within the single development. So for example, the Speedway, for example, where they had a development on one side of the road and on the other side of the road. Exemptions, right.
Right.
So that was also part of the whole theory of how to allow that to go together into a one development, so it made sense for everybody. So it was all part of trying to make the system make more sense. Does that help, Joyce?
That helps, but also I think it needs to be explicitly clear that we will do credits, but would they have to be approved prior to us giving credits?
Yes, ma'am. It's not going to be a situation where a developer says, you owe me these credits because I'm doing something. Before they get going on that, they would have to come in and negotiate with the council or with the administrative staff as well as and depending on the length and breadth of it, it may require a development agreement as well.
Right.
And I think that needs to be very clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Beginning on page 0-2 or 02-6, we begin to actually get into the details of how much money has been collected for each one of our individual impact fee funds. We start with parks. Parks and recreation impact fees are collected from residential developments only. Again, we have to get into the rational nexus. Non-residential does not generate a need for parks, so we only charge residential uses. And that's charged to single family and multifamily. As you can see, we have the 4 zones. You'll notice also that we have a quote-unquote district. These are for regional parks that are beyond just a geographic zone. They apply to throughout the county, so therefore we charge that in all 4 zones. And so we have a net over the last 5 years of roughly $567,000 that have been collected for parks. Next, we talk about fire rescue. These are utilized for high-valued rolling stock, new and improved stations, as well as other capital improvements. Again, this is a 4-zone area, and we've collected roughly $291,000 over the last 5 years. School impact fees, I need to clarify. We set and collect the impact fee in cooperation with the Volusia County School Board. The school board does the heavy lifting in regards to coming up with the actual fee, but as part of our requirements to have this. And I need to clarify the reason why we see this is that the school board does not get involved in the permitting of single-family or multifamily developments. So therefore, in order to do the check and balance to make sure that that impact fee is collected prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy, we are responsible for that. So we will collect it, we are able to charge an administrative fee, and then we transfer the money over to the school board who will allocate it as part of their 5-year budgeting project. And again, this is the first time you see credits showing up on the ledger. There are going to be situations where developers will either do construction improvements to add to capacity of a school or donate land for a future school. And that is showing up here where we see that there was roughly $16 million collected and $428,000 worth of credits over the last 5 years. Now we get into a little bit more complicated issues in regard to the thoroughfare. Pages 2.9, 2.10, and 2.11 all pertain to the thoroughfare roads. I want to clarify what thoroughfare roads are. In the one-on-ones, that was one of the questions. Thoroughfare roads are designated in our comprehensive plan. They are collector and arterial roads that provide inter-regional transportation. So city to city, county to county areas. so that that way we're not just dealing with local roads, which are primarily located within one municipality. The whole point is this is a county-wide transportation system. So what we're seeing is that there's very specific roads, and as Mr. Deneen referenced, after we had been working through this, we realized we needed to really kind of fine-tune what was on that map. And so we've done that, and so therefore what we have now are very clear roads that only serve within the Volusia County area. The critical part that I've been asked about is why don't we have the ability to do trades between zones to, you know, the east side and the west side, for lack of a better term. And if you look at the road network, we do not have a county road that goes from west to east. And again, getting back to the rational nexus, we have to be able to show that we're going to be able to have that impact fee that's collected over on the east side paying for something that would benefit them. Without a road that connects the east and west side that is a county road, we cannot allocate those funds. So that's why we don't allow for credits to transfer. Table 5 gives you the details in regards to how much was collected. That is the actual cash that was collected for thoroughfare road impact fees over the last 5 years. Right below it are the credits that we were realizing during that same time frame. So in other words, this represents money that we gave a developer credit and they are now cashing in. We do not see any money coming in from that, but we do have either land or improvements or both as a result of that. On page 2-10, this is where a little bit more clarity comes in. Prior to 2005, we had a very, very successful and robust impact fee system. We were collecting a great deal of money, and we saw that we needed to get ahead of the curve in regards to road improvements so we could address the growth that was occurring. Because please remember, 2005, it was going crazy. We were getting a lot of development, we were getting a lot of pressure. The county council decided to issue a $65 million bond so that that way roadway improvements could be done to improve the network, to get ahead of it, to make sure that when we did start realizing development, that they weren't going to be hamstrung by the fact that we didn't have a road network in place. Unfortunately, in 2007, the amount of impact fees dramatically dropped. So we had to figure out a way to pay for the bonds that we had issued. We had obligated our gas tax, but we're planning on using impact fees to actually pay back the debt. What you see is that out of the $14 million that we collected, we had to pay $13 million on the debt. So that left us roughly $1.25 million over 5 years of collections. Just to give you a form of reference, roadways, just a simple 1 mile length of road ranges from 2.5 up to $5 million, whether you're doing a rural section or urban section. So $1.25 million basically gives you a quarter to half a lane. So the actual amount of money that we were able to utilize was relatively limited. This has been kind of a complicated issue, and I wanted to make sure I stole from my friends at Public Works because they provided this graphic to you back in 2016. This kind of gives you a clear picture of what we're talking about. The blue represents the impact.
Let me just, Ms. Denny's had a question, comment on the previous statement on the cost, I think.
Just for point of reference, 1 mile is what, how, 2.5 million?
If you do a simple rural road, it's around $2.5 to $5 million.
With no gutters, no sidewalks, no
Basic.
curbing, just basic paving. And the only reason I'm saying that, it just seems a little appropriate from public input before council on just 1.5 miles, lift the road up 6 inches. So you're
Wasn't it
looking.
18 inches?
18 inches.
Yeah,
18.
so you're looking at $2.5, $3 million.
Depending on the
It
situation.
sounds simple, but with the cost, like FDOT told us, going up 35, 40%, it's a big ticket item. It sounds little, but it's really not.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, our friends in Public Works provided this back in 2016 to help give an idea of what we were facing. The good news is everything's going to be paid off. The bad news is that our funding source dipped considerably in 2008 and continued downward. There were questions in regards to why you see in 16-17 a slight reduction in impact fees. We believe that that is attributable to credits. We're still building back off of projects that were approved back in 2005 and never realized. So they are still out there. As they are getting built, we're having to cash in those credits they have. Once all the credits are gone, then we will start seeing more of a revenue in regards to cash flow. But right now, we're working through that. The critical point is that almost all of our impact fees were going to retire this debt. Not only were they going there, but it's also our local option gas tax.
Clay, if I can add, just so that the public understands, the previous council in 2004 is what issued the bond. They had good reason to issue it. They wanted to try and get ahead of some of the development that was going on and also prepare for success as economic development showed up. They borrowed the money, and then, as you know, the economy slowed down. But we continued on with the construction of roads. Two good things happened. Number one, a lot of those roads we have today are the basis of some of the economic development that really has started to spur here, especially like Trader Joe's and a number of other places. Without those improvements, I don't believe we would have gotten those industries. The other thing was, the one saving grace is, even though we lost impact fees to pay, and we used gas tax, which we had obligated, the thing was that it's one of the rare times when the cost of construction for road actually declined because there wasn't as much going on. So we got more bang for the buck. Here's the other thing, and this is the thing that on the administrative side really troubles us. We doubled our money basically from the $65 million. We more than doubled it with grants, because you got to have grant money to put up matches to get other money. So the 65 million brought in, we actually did twice that in terms of the amount of road construction we would do. The big problem we have today, I think Mr. Kelly brought that up at our meeting at the roundtable, was that it's not just that we don't have money, we are letting everyone else get the other money we would get if we had match money. So we're not only not having money for roads, we're giving other communities the opportunity to get money that we're not going to get because we can't match it. So we're losing by not spending, so to speak. So I do think, in all fairness, that the previous council, no one could have predicted the downturn, but it turned out fortuitous that we borrowed the money at the time we did. We got more done for our money, and we got more grants probably because there was less competition. So that's another thing that factors into, as we pay this off, why it was a good investment, but it definitely shows that pre-planning was a good idea.
I remember during that time, you weren't getting funded unless you were shovel-ready.
Right.
So the fact is that we were able to get ahead of the curve and take advantage of some of the quote-unquote shovel-ready money. In summary of what's occurred, what we're seeing is that the recession really put us back in regards to being able to take our impact fee funds and go forward with the thoroughfare roads. The other thing that bar graph kind of showed is that we, in order to address some of the concerns and to help spur economic recovery during this time frame, the council wisely decided that we needed to suspend some of the impact fees. And we did this over a 3-year period. Again, to the council's credit, they identified specific areas that were eligible for this waiver, but they kept the impact fees in other areas, specifically to spur growth in the areas where development was encouraged and to keep people from going further and further into the hinterland and putting greater pressure on the county to provide services. So we saw that as a positive. Yes, it did have a little bit of reduction on the impact fees that we're collecting, but it did provide a valuable resource in regards to our economic recovery.
Well, the other thing is it helps set in motion a philosophy that the council may want to look at in the future someday, which was you were discouraging growth, and this is what people wanted you to do in areas that really weren't suitable, where there was no infrastructure, and you were trying to get more fill-in where the infrastructure already was.
And I apologize for this wordy slide here. I know it's very difficult to see. This is slide 2-13. So I'm going to jump over to 2-14, which is a graphic which says what I just was showing you on that previous slide. What basically happens is, how do we account for development pressure right now on our roads? If we are facing a situation where we have relatively no impact fees, how are we working with them to keep the economic engine going? In the past, what we've done is been able to utilize two things, either proportionate share, where we have a specific project that we've identified in our 5-year work program, where if a developer had an impact on it, we would charge them that percentage, they would pay into it, and we would be able to take the money that they were giving us and use it for other places as well. So in other words, I have $1 million project, this developer's owing me $100,000, we would put his $100,000 towards the project, and then take $100,000 out of that to fund another project or to do other improvements. Because of our lack of funding through the impact fee program, paying the debt down, we don't really have a reliable funding source for a 5-year work program. We're working off of the bond issue that was issued for the $65 million, but we're still relatively behind in that aspect. So what is the alternative for the development community? Because we don't want to necessarily stop things from going forward where they're in a critical location that's properly within our plans for development. And so we've come up with something called a pipeline project. This is a common term throughout the state of Florida. And it's basically, I come in with my traffic study as a developer. I identify what roadway sections are being impacted. I identify what intersections are being impacted. And the staff back at the city and the county come up with what would be the improvements that would basically make up or mitigate for my impacts. We then charge them for that and either do the work ourselves or they do it. We have to give them a dollar for dollar impact fee credit for that. Remember that. So again, we're back at a situation where impact fee credits have to be allocated anytime someone is basically expending money for a capital improvement that is mitigating for traffic impacts. So sometimes that can actually go above what their actual impact fees would be due. So if I have, a project that would owe $500,000 in impact fees for thoroughfare roads, but my mitigation is $850,000, we're going to require you to go do the $850,000 improvement, but you now have $850,000 worth of impact fee credits. So you have your project covered, and now you're going to be selling those credits out on the market. That is how we are making through. So I want to make sure everyone understands that the development community is not getting a pass-through on this particular situation, and that the cities and the county are working together to make sure that these improvements are being done to mitigate for some of the impacts that are resulting. It's just that right now we don't have that reliable funding source for a larger term 5-year work program. You will hear the term proportionate share and pipeline. I just went through those, but basically the critical element that we wanted to make sure is that you understood is that proportionate share is dictated by Florida statute. So there's nothing that we can do to really alter what's going to be done. And the critical point is that it has to be tied to one of our programs. In other words, it has to be a public improvement that's a capital improvement that we've allocated and making sure it's going to be working forward from there. If we don't have that, we don't want to get into a prop share agreement because then we're going to be relied on to fund the full thing. Pipeline is a quicker, easier way to get through it, but there's after a while you will run out of capability of doing these smaller mitigations. So again, it gives us an option, and we're just looking forward to get past all of this so we can start seeing more cash flow through this impact fee.
One other thing, though, you make a point here, and why Ms. Denny's, I think, asked for this, and the chair talked to me about this too, is that I think by pointing this out, this is one of the frustrations that some of the developers have, is that everyone has heard of, in some cases, impact fees. They don't know that developers are responsible for proportionate share. And in a lot of cases, it can be very significant money. And unlike some of the impact fees, a lot of this has to be paid up front. And so this really becomes very detrimental to what, in some cases, has to be passed along on the home to make it affordable. So I do think one of the good things about today's meeting is I think this is completely misunderstood, or there's a lack of understanding in the community that development has to pay this in addition to impact fees.
That's a great segue to get back into the comparison.
But another point is that I think it's important that we look at prop share in as it relates to the pros and cons. What, as a developer, what would you say as to where we should be in this? Because there's disagreement between where we are as a government entity and where developers are. So, and we don't do in county government what we call a bill analysis. So, and a bill analysis will give you the pros and cons of this. So when we make informed decisions as it relates to impact fees, we would have the positives and the negatives, how it impact our citizens, and also how it will impact development. So I think that we need to have a clearer picture, if you will. And sometimes that might be done by a third party. Because developer has one idea, and we as government, we set policy, and we have maybe not the same idea. So it would be good for us as policymakers to have an analysis as to where we are and where we need to go as a county. I just thought I'd let you know that you ought to be looking at a bill analysis on this.
And help me understand this too, Clay, because you're right, there's so many layers. Impact fees is like just touching the surface of everything else that happens in the process. This has been a real eye-opening, informative process for me, and I'm really glad that we're discussing it, because we've never, since I've been on the council, had a discussion on impact fees and how it relates, especially in today's economy. And the prop share, when was that put into place? Do you remember what year that was put in?
Prop share was originally put in place shortly after 2000. It was amended in 2004. The state was hot at the time. Many of the counties on the west side of the state were not able to keep up. Sarasota, the Tampa area, and at the time, the legislature thought it would be a good idea. The position is that growth should pay for itself, and that the people that live there shouldn't have their ad valorem taxes burdened to pay for the impacts from the growth. Impact fees were not sufficient at the time, and so they came up with what they call concurrency.
Right.
And that is that the infrastructure has to be in place at the time that the development occurs. And they put in place what had already been in the DRI statute, which was the calculation for proportionate share for a DRI, and they then applied it to everything. So every government that has concurrency has to calculate prop share. Where we come in is our cities have concurrency. We are not seeing a lot of development in the unincorporated area right now. We see small developments being finished that have already been approved before the recession, but we're seeing tremendous development within our cities. Our cities have concurrency. It's the city staffs that receive the traffic impact analyses. It's the city staffs that work with our Public Works Department to determine the impact on our thoroughfare roads. So we sometimes get the blame for the proportionate share, but it's state law and our cities have concurrency. And so we're complying with the state law.
We're like the overseeing agency. Well, we are for Volusia County for the cities. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that explanation. It's just clarifying. But the difference too with proportionate shares, that's for a developer or a builder, that's cash up front.
Yes.
Versus an impact fee that gets passed on to the home buyer. Impact fees are just wrapped, and I'm sure the prop share too, to a degree, will be. I don't want to get into all that, but the prop share
does increase the buying price on the
Absolutely.
homeowner.
Yes,
Absolutely.
It does.
Absolutely.
And the emphasis for the developer is they can read our impact fee ordinance. They know how many square feet, they know what the development is, they can read across and they can say it's whatever it is per home, it's whatever it is per square feet of commercial. They can calculate that. The prop share, they can't. They don't know until the traffic impact analysis is done. It's a 3 mile and a 5 mile radius. They get to see which intersections are failing. And that's when the negotiations really begin, and we talk about pipelining the projects. And we do our best to work with the developer, but that is an unknown number for them that sometimes takes them by surprise.
It's a high risk, for sure.
Yes.
And just to add to the response to the previous question in regards to prop shares in the history, at one point, development community was concerned about the increasing amount of impact fees. I can tell you in the late 90s when I was doing private consulting, many of our clients were asking, can I prepay my impact fees so that way I'm not going to be captured with any kind of increases?
Bank 'em, yeah.
Therefore, that was one of the driving forces behind proportionate share is that, hey, I know right now if I got X number of dollars and I can say that I've got 1,000 units and it's going to cost me this in impact fees, let me prepay it and I'm done. Write a check and I'm gone.
Yeah, but the problem with that is when you go to build the infrastructure, now it costs more money than you have. The other thing was, and Ms. Denny's mentioned, so that people understand what the council went through, in 2006, growth was still prevalent. The council did a study on impact fees in 2007 to look at whether they should be changed, because ours are relatively low. As soon as we did the study, the economy went in the tank. No one was interested in not only looking at increasing the fees. In 2010, the council actually got rid of them. And so the reason it hasn't been on your plate is there wasn't development. And there was no thought when there was no development. In fact, they wanted you to get rid of impact fees. There was no thought of actually raising them or reviewing them. So the really healthy thing about today's discussion is, as the growth heats up, this all needs to be brought to the forefront. And like we said, I got developers that are frustrated because they believe that no one understands what they have to pay and what they have to add to a house.
No, I understood. But in those years, did the moratorium on impact fees, was that commercial and residential?
It was only residential.
It was only residential.
Never on commercial.
Yeah. So we've maintained it on the commercial, which really is the largest impact that we're seeing right now.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, it's huge. Okay, thank you.
And just to kind of give a sense of where we're at, here's a table that is in your packet. It's Table 9. It's comparison of total impact fees that are charged by the cities in unincorporated Volusia County. And what you're seeing is that there was a error with the original document that went out, so we've corrected it. And what you're seeing is unincorporated, actually, if you total up fire, parks, county thoroughfares, schools, water, sewer, someone building a single-family home, roughly 1,800 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Volusia County will pay $10,351.89 in impact fees. The highest in Volusia County right now is Beltona at a little bit over $13,700, and then you see town of Pearson is at $5,713. So that gives you the range of amounts that are charged for a typical single-family home. We have heard from residential developers that that's one of the main concerns, because as you look at the population within Volusia County, those who can qualify for homes are getting squeezed, because as you have increasing land value, increasing construction costs, and increasing permitting fees, the amount of people who can qualify for a home is decreasing, because our wages are relatively stable, but the costs are kind of going up. So that's why we hear from the residential developers of why they see any kind of increase in these amounts can have a detrimental impact on their market. Next is a comparison of the thoroughfare road impact fees that are charged by other counties surrounding us. Just the column over to the far left identifies the use. The second column identifies the unit that you use for calculating your impact fee. And then the following are comparisons of just the road impact fees. Again, this is just road impact fee. It goes, a wide and varied stance there. You see as low as $500 for Lake County, which pertains to their South District, to a high of roughly $5,000 charged by Brevard County for a single family. What you're seeing is that the two counties Seminole and Lake County have a 1-cent sales tax that is used to help as an alternative funding source for some of their roadway improvements. So that seeing that you have to calculate that when you're doing your impact fee calculation. In other words, you're looking at total cost, and then you also have to look at what are the funding sources that are being allocated. So it can range from as low as $500 all the way up to $5,000 for a single family. For the most part, what we're seeing is Volusia County is comparable with the majority of our neighbors, with the exception of those areas that are implementing alternative funding sources for roadway improvements. In summary, and that's the last page on 2-18, we kind of go over what we were talking about in regards to how they can be utilized, how we're calculating, what are the critical elements in implementing an impact fee system. And, you know, we're not looking right now from a staff for any kind of direction or anything. We realized that this was more for information at this point. And so if there's any questions for me or the staff, we'll be glad to answer it.
I know Mr. Patterson did have a comment. I don't know whether it's a question or not. Mr. Patterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this has really been an enlightening experience for me again, because, you know, back in the 90s when I first came on the county council, you mentioned the word impact fee, and you'd see the construction industry come in at you with their hair on fire, because it was a hot issue back then. And it really had a negative effect, the impact fees on the construction industry, both residential and commercial. My biggest concern with any talk on impact fees is its impact on our families who are trying to buy a house and whose costs. And I think a lot of people think it's the contractor that is picking up the cost, but they're passing it on to the homeowner. And an increase can basically potentially cause a homeowner to not be able to get the financing. And I recently saw this with my own daughter, who was buying a house down in another county. She's a school teacher. She only had so much money, you know, her and her husband, to pay for that home. And $100 would have literally put them out of the price range and not being able to qualify for the mortgage. So we have to really be concerned of what we do when we even to start discussing impact fees and their potential impact on the families that we're trying to help in this community. I mean, I think of our school teachers, our medical professionals, and people who work in the medical fields and in business. And I think it also, when we start talking about economic development, we have to be concerned about that potential negative effect on that also. So I'm not going to try to talk too much. My voice can go real quick here at this point, but I think it is important that for the people that are listening to this discussion, that they actually understand, because it's been a long time since we really had a very incised look at what exactly impact fees are, what it comprises of, and who pays it. And I hope that there's more people that are listening to this conversation today so that they understand. Because I've had a few people who have called and say they weren't going to support a local option sale tax unless we increased the impact fees. And I mean, you know, that's just that's getting way out of line, you know, in trying to compare the two at this point. So, and I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Lauer, you have a question or a comment, or are you okay?
Well, I'm okay pretty much. I'll just briefly, basically, Mr. Patterson took pretty much the words out of my mouth. I agree entirely with what he said. I want us to be very careful. I think it's nice to get the information, and Clay Irvin and his staff have done a great job of getting that, a lot of questions answered in my mind. But to me, it's nice to have the information. I think that's good enough for me. I don't really want to, I think letting a sleeping dog lie in this case might be the best situation.
Okay.
And I'm certainly for the information, but I think we just need to leave well enough alone. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just make a couple of comments. I've expressed my opinion on impact fees and felt there should be DPAC fees as well, but I'll let that part go. The biggest part that disturbs me on this is, as Mr. Patterson pointed out, what this does to the average or the lower middle class and lower middle class person who wants to buy their first home. I've seen examples where with the prop share and the impact fees, you're approaching an additional $30,000 for a single family home.
Crazy.
Now, that's impossible. And I don't really think it's that fair to expect someone to pay that kind of money. As a result, I think one of the results is you've seen an increase price of value of used homes, not new homes. So the used ones don't have to pay it, which you assume that they paid something, but most of them didn't, that were built 25, 30 years ago. So those houses have gone up because you can maybe get into those a little bit easier. So I just think we have to be very, very careful. I did a projection based upon the net number of homes that are projected to be built in the next 15 years of what revenue it would bring in just in impact fees, and it was like minuscule compared. It was barely a year's worth of sales tax for a 0.5% sales tax. So there's no way that you can expect all of the improvements that we need just to fix the issues that we currently have to be done with that. On the good side of this, on part that was mentioned, in 6 years, the bond, the $65 million bond, will be paid off, which will be good. I don't know whether we'll have any funds then from the gas tax to pay anything. So we'll have potholes to fix. There still will not probably be any money, any revenue to take care of our current traffic jams and situations. And Jamie, I think you have a comment.
I did, because one of the things that Mr. Patterson said was that he's gotten phone calls that people will not support the sales tax unless the impact fees go up. But it lacks an understanding of how impact fees are actually calculated. As you could see from the slide from Seminole County does have the sales tax for their road infrastructure, and their impact fee is actually lower. When you have a revenue source such as gas tax that comes in at a higher number, or sales tax that is earmarked for road construction, that goes into the calculation, and that is why Seminole County's road impact is lower. They have had the sales tax since 1994.
Okay.
And they renewed it just a few years ago. So I think people don't understand. It can't go up. If we do get the sales tax, it's not going to go up. Impact fees will not go up.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
If there are no other comments, thank you for the.
Mr. Chair, one other comment. Some of the developing community asked me to point out is that if they build a home for about $250,000, about $125,000 of it they pay sales tax on. And so even with the increase in sales tax, the developers that I know of were in favor of it, even if they are going to have to pay more on the products that they put into the houses. So I just want you to know that sales tax would come out of the new construction, and so it would be helped to support. So the sales tax from new homes is going to help support the build the road, so it is fair in that sense.
Right. Any other comments? I just thank staff for doing, Clay, a great job. You made it very easy to understand, and thank you for the exercise, and hope those listening, and I'm sure this will be posted online for anyone who wants to go and examine it in detail. Okay, with that, we will move to item 3, and this is the confirmation of appointment of
Regina Montgomery. Mr. Chair, I will let George introduce this, and I'll make a few comments, but I could not be happier today than to do this confirmation. George?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we're very excited to present for confirmation today Regina Montgomery for our solid waste director. Regina, I just want the council to know, went through a rigorous competition to get this position. We went on a nationwide search. Our solid waste division enjoys a really a sparkling reputation nationwide, and we were looking for someone that could take it to the next level. Regina competed and won hands down in that competition. It's not surprising because of the dedicated service that she's put through here at Volusia County for many years. She's also, got quite an education, worked her way up all the way through a master's in accounting. She's held positions as an administrative assistant, recycling coordinator, and then our fiscal resource manager out at Solid Waste. She is certified to operate these landfills, transfer stations, and she has quite a lot of experience also now out in the field. This is something, again, got a little bit of planning out ahead that Mr. Marion made sure that the place was left in good hands, and Regina's reflection of that. Would you come on forward and say a couple words?
Mr. Chair, members of the County Council, thank you for this opportunity, and I so look forward to my next chapter at the Solid Waste Division. I especially want to thank Mr. Deneen, Mr. Rechtenwald, and Mr. Anjuli for affording me this opportunity. A special thank you to our former director, Mr. Marion, for teaching me so much. And I'd also like to thank the staff at the Solid Waste Division for their support and the hard work they do every day. I'd also like to thank my husband, Kevin, who's here today supporting me, as he's always my greatest supporter. Again, thank you, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Thank you. Ms. Cusack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regina, we're so proud of you. I want to ask you, did you take advantage of the tuition reimbursement program here at county government?
I did not. At the time, I was an intern, and I don't think I was afforded that opportunity, but I worked my way through school, and I'm very proud of that.
Yes, you're to be commended for that. I think that it's so important that we understand that we have some wonderful employees here that have taken advantage of many opportunities by being employed here. So not only is it a wonderful thing to be an employee here, it's also a wonderful opportunity to have the ability to have the tuition reimbursement program. That's a great asset. But also it says that it's something that we do here in county government as far as recruiting good people to work in this organization. So we're very proud of you, Mrs. Montgomery, and we look forward to the next chapter. I know you'll do well because that's what we do. And so we look forward to relationship, and I'll be watching you, and I wish you nothing but the very best. This county government is even more blessed to have people like you who want to continue to be a part of our organization. We applaud you and we thank you, and we look forward to your next chapter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations. Hard work pays off after all these years, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
The only comment that I heard, I had to giggle, and I don't know if it was on purpose, but when we can say our solid waste department has a sparkling reputation.
That's right, that's right. We do.
We're really doing well. So, good job. Thanks. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Ms. Post.
Regina, I just wanted to say congratulations, and I wanted you to know my opinion going out there and talking to you and touring the facilities and doing those kinds of things. Your professionalism was just very evident to me from the start, from the moment that I met you, and I just wanted to make sure and tell you that, and the way that you answered the questions, the way that, your obvious knowledge of everything out there is just, it's fascinating. So I just wanted to say congratulations. And solid waste is a hard area to work, because that's an area, if it messes up, people notice. So I applaud you for the work that you're doing, and
Thank you.
Mr. Deneen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say to Regina, she knows how I feel because I have a pretty extensive background in solid waste. I'm real picky when it comes to who we hire. One of the most important things I have responsibility for is who we hire. And we hire nothing but the best, okay? And I will tell you, so you do understand, that, yeah, I am proud of Regina and all the hard work and getting her education and also understanding how that place functions. But we do pretty well in drawing competition for jobs because we're a good employer. We drew really good competition for this job. So what I can tell you is she beat out the best. And she convinced me, and I'm real picky when it comes to solid waste and picking department directors, that she is absolutely the right person for the job, right place, right time, right person. And I couldn't be more proud that she worked her way up, and that's the kind of organization we are. And people, I think, have faith that if they work hard here, they get a chance for opportunity for advancement. Thank you very much for your effort you put in so far, and the big challenge is still to come.
Thank you.
Ms. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Sure, Mr. Patterson. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add in, many times I've called over to solid waste when I need to talk trash, to get something taken care of. And, you know, it's good from what I've seen. It's been a wonderful experience for me because they're quick and they get right on a particular problem when somebody's trash hasn't been picked up, or or somebody's a little unhappy about something. They really do a fantastic job of making sure that everybody is taken care of, and I'm proud to know that Ms. Montgomery is going to be taking over that department. She's done a tremendous job over the years. So thank you very much.
Ms. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regina, congratulations. 17 years working for the county, and it's paid off. It's paid off. You're here now. I'm just so proud to see that we find those people within and we promote and encourage, and here's the result of it. Congratulations, and we'll all be anxious to see how your next chapter folds out.
Need to entertain a motion for confirmation of Regina Montgomery as the Solid Waste Director.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the confirmation of appointment of Regina Montgomery as our solid waste director.
I'll second Wheeler.
Second. Post. Motion is made and second. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, and congratulations and thank you, and so happy is what Ms. Wheeler said, that continuing from within.
Congratulations, Kevin. We'll move to item 4, the update by Rob Earhart for the on our goals and objectives.
Good morning, Chairman Kelly, members of the County Council. Rob Earhart, Economic Development Director. I just would note there was an earlier reference to Whack-A-Mole by Mr. Pericola. That's a real game. And for those that don't know, that game is manufactured by Bob's Space Racers
in Holly Hill,
right here in Volusia County.
Holly Hill.
So, Ms. Denny's, when you're in D.C., you might. So again, good morning. This is the fourth quarter update for the local economy, certain metrics that we report on regularly. with consumer confidence and sentiment in Florida at its highest point since March of 2002, and continued references to the Great Recession. I hope you'll see that the word recovery is a recurring theme throughout the presentation. The slide you see before you is typically shown in February so that you can see the progress that we're making in annual average wage. The figure shown is the number or the dollar level that will be used as a reference point for any applications to state incentive programs that occurred during this calendar year 2018. That figure, $36,558, is a 1.8% increase over prior year. To put that into context, excuse me, the report that came out Friday for the federal government, or by the federal government, that said annual average wage increases throughout the country have been in the 2.9% range. Sean Snaith is forecasting in his 5-year forecast for the state of Florida that Volusia County, or rather our MSA, will see an increase of 4.5% over his 5-year forecast period. This is a slide you're very familiar with, so I'll only concentrate on the lower left to say that unemployment rates continue to be substantially below 5%, which is that number that most national economists view as representing full employment. Mr. Snaith also makes reference to his 5-year forecast that unemployment will average 4.8% in our MSA over that forecast period. We see this regularly with local employers who are seeking qualified talent, and so they'll have to continue to figure out how to solve those challenges in their business. But we took note of an article that appeared in the New York Post earlier this week. It was commenting on the recent implementation of the Tax Act, and I'll just read some excerpts. Yes, they are actively poaching, and yes, change of residence is easy. This is a statement made by Catherine Wild, who's the president of the New York City Partnership, and she's making reference to Florida counterparts who are actively seeking businesses in the state of New York to relocate them to the state of Florida. The article goes on to reference that the partnership said in an analysis of the impact of the new federal tax law, or did an analysis of the impact of the tax law, and here's the key point. The study showed that a typical family of 4 that earns $175,000 in the city of New York will pay 25% of their income in taxes.
We're going to have to pause for a second. We've lost connections on Mr. Patterson's online participation, so until we can get him hooked back up, connected.
Hello?
You there? Okay. Okay. So,
Okay.
that everyone's back. Dr. Lowry, you are back? Never left.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. We will resume the meeting after that short timeout.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just finishing up, the comment was that a typical family of 4 that earns $175,000 in the city of New York pays 25% of their income in taxes in that current state, as compared to 14% for that same family of 4 in the state of Florida. So the point being that we're not just recruiting businesses, but we're recruiting workforce from other states to the state of Florida. And again, with a day like we're having today, almost 80 degrees, earlier this morning I got out of my vehicle, somebody's cutting the grass. So in February, first week of February, no doubt. Come on down. This is another chart that you're very familiar with, so we will move forward a little bit and look at new construction building permit data on the residential side. So total permits in 2017 totaled just shy of 2,000, specifically 1,981. So to provide some context to that, as reported by the Daytona Beach News Journal, Maury Hosseini with ICI Homes has said that we can hit just short of 3,000 in 2018. So in the current calendar year, there's a potential that we could increase what you see for all of 2017. We can increase that by 50% in terms of numbers of permits here in 2018. So I think that lends credibility to the comment you made earlier, Mr. Chair, during the discussion about impact fees and what the coming impacts, increases in revenue from that will be. Moving into new construction, this, as we've seen and continues to be the case, it's kind of an up-down proposition. I would just make the observation, I'm going to use a sports anecdote to make an observation here. If you think back to the afternoon of Sunday, January 28th, there were roughly 19,000 people inside the Amalie Arena in Tampa attending the National Hockey League All-Star Game. There were roughly 51,000 people in Orlando in Camping World Stadium attending the NFL Pro Bowl.
I'm here. This is Pat Patterson.
Welcome back, Mr. Patterson. There was an unknown number of people in Daytona watching the finish of the 24-hour Rolex 24-hour race. And so the point of referencing all of that is that we believe that it's an event like that and other events that we have, great events that we have in Volusia County, continues to bring people to our community and help them understand the great value proposition that we have and realize some of the things that we've all seen reported on recently. And I'll just give you some examples. Our MSA is ranked number 46 of the top 200 best performing cities in the country. Our MSA is ranked in the top 10 of the country's top 100 MSAs for employment gains expected in the first 3 months of 2018. That second quote is from Manpower. The first was from the Milken Institute. Our MSA is the third hottest home resale market in the country. That's from Realtor.com. Volusia County was ranked 7th in the 2018 Best Places to Retire in America evaluation of the top 100 largest metropolitan areas. That's U.S. News & World Report. So those are great anecdotes that says, in my view, we have a great value proposition here, and the more those people come to our community, reference back to that comment about New York Post, they see we have direct JetBlue service from Daytona Beach International Airport to New York, so they can go back and visit their family easily. Again, attracting workforce and attracting companies to Florida and to Volusia County continues to be a positive opportunity for us. We haven't reported on foreclosures for a while, and you can tell from the data that's shown on this slide why that's the case. It has become a very, very minimal headwind in the economy at this point. So the next slide is a comparison of regional GDP pre-recession to current day. So the green line, if you look at to the left of the slide at the top, it says the percentage change from 2007 base year. So this is not the actual GDP as a number, as a dollar figure. It's just what is the relative increase or decrease of GDP since prior to the recession. So you see the obvious that we were impacted pretty significantly, just over 12% into the 2011 period, and we've rebounded, or the recovery that's occurred since that point in time, we're now almost 15% above. And on the slide, you can see a translation of what that is in dollars, almost $2 billion improvement to our GDP. We thought it'd be interesting to show a comparison of our MSA to the state of Florida, and I'll point out that our MSA in this case does include Flagler County. It's not just Volusia County. And then a few weeks ago, I was watching a local TV station who did a special on the Space Coast, and they continue to stress that the economy in the Space Coast is transformed in the last 6 years. I did some research on what the definition of transformed means, but I said, well, it'd be interesting to compare ourselves to the Space Coast economy. So roughly that translates to the Palm Bay, Melbourne, Titusville MSA. And you can see that though the GDP for their economy, to be clear, is higher in dollars than us, we have rebounded faster since the low point, and we've rebounded further since pre-recession. So great things that are taking place down the coast of the state of Florida. We are certainly enjoying that, as you know. The question also comes to mind, so what industry or industries are kind of leading that increase in GDP? And so we pulled out professional service industry specifically to demonstrate that. This is the leading industry. On the other end of the spectrum, construction industry is not yet fully recovered prior to the recession, and you can see what that looks like here. So we have a file of all the industry super sectors that will be sent to your administrative assistants later today so that you can look at all the industries that we have. So this last slide showing the Space Florida logo just gives me a chance to wrap up and let you know that we will have our Q breakfast this Friday inside the Daytona Beach International Airport Passenger Terminal in the Dennis McGee Room. Starts at 7:45 for the breakfast, 8 o'clock the meeting. Mr. Chair, we look forward to you helping us with that. Our our featured speaker is Senior Vice President Bernie McShay. He's a Senior Vice President for Space Florida and Business Development. And we also have a guest speaker, which is a co-owner of a local business who is going to come and share her thoughts on the value of the Florida Emergency Bridge Loan Program, their experience and the impact that it had on their business. I mentioned the word recovery earlier. Ms. Denny's made reference to it. Hopefully by Friday, we will have seen that SpaceX not only successfully launched the Falcon Heavy this afternoon, launch windows between 1:30 and 4, but that they will have successfully recovered not one, not two, but 3 boosters for the Falcon Heavy, 2 of which I understand are to be landed on their land-based sites, and 1, I guess, is going to be landed offshore somewhere. I'd also want to mention that I think we're all aware that the Winter Olympics, the opening ceremony is this Friday evening. And there's a local firm, and so we reported this in our On the Economic Scene document. There's a local firm, Radon, who has built an app. There's an app for that. So winter sports fans who crave the speed and intensity of the bobsleigh can now experience the thrills from the pilot's seat with the Bobsleigh 360 app for Android and iOS, developed by Radon right here in Volusia County in Port Orange. Lastly, if you haven't had a chance recently, I'd encourage you to go on our website, floridabusiness.org. We've incorporated some significant changes there. Hopefully you'll see those as improvements as they were intended. And I wanted to give a special shout out to Shelley Northrup on staff in the Community Information Group, who has been very instrumental in helping us put those in place. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
That
Rob.
completes my report.
Excellent reporting on a very good quarter. Thank you for that. And as I've commented to, I think, someone last week, and you re-emphasized that, is we are not only becoming, maybe we can stop some of our brain drain by the students that we have in our area staying here. We're going to become a destination employment area. And I think that's pointed out with all the fine work that you've done. And I hope to be there Friday morning. If not, someone will. I think I have some place to be with the judicial thing. So one of us will be there. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your support.
Joanne Magley, have some updates.
Good morning, Joanne Magley, Community Information Director, and I have your events update for this council meeting. February 7th at 5:30 and February 8th at 9 a.m., our Purchasing and Contracts Division will hold 2 workshops for vendors who want to learn how to do business with the county. This is where staff demonstrates just the process for registering and explaining how to submit bids and things like that. So again, those workshops are February 7th and February 8th, and the information is on the website. Rob just mentioned the quarterly update this Friday. I'll move to February 10th at 9 a.m. The county and the town of Ponce Inlet are participating together as partners along with the Daytona International Speedway to unveil a historical marker at Winter Haven Park in Ponce Inlet. You may notice if you're in that park, just in front of the parking area, there's a stretch of road, which is the original Atlantic Avenue, which was part of the 4.1-mile course where the Grand National Race ran from 1948 until 1958, when it was relocated to what's now the Daytona International Speedway. So that unveiling is at 9 a.m., and Councilwoman Billy Wheeler will be there to represent the county. And then after the unveiling at 10:30 is the 7th Annual Historic North Turn Legends Beach Parade, where, again, those historic cars will line up on Atlantic Avenue. They'll go down Atlantic Avenue, go onto the beach, and basically they're replicating the road course that they did back in the day. And we have Votran that's providing public transportation to and from the areas around that parade. And public parking is at Tornado Avenue Beachfront Park. On February 14th at 11 o'clock and at 3 o'clock, we are excited to say that the clerk of the Circuit County Court for Volusia County is going to be holding 2 group wedding ceremonies, and that's on Valentine's Day. There's a Daytona Beach ceremony at 11 o'clock at the Pavilion at City Island Park in Daytona Beach. And in DeLand, that ceremony will be performed at 3 p.m. in the rotunda of the historical Volusia County Courthouse. So information, again, is on the clerk's page. It's also on the county's website under news releases. They are waiving the $30 marriage ceremony fee for these special group weddings. And then I'm also excited to report that we had a very successful Daytona Beach Half Marathon on Sunday. Our next council meeting, I can provide a recap, but thank you again to Councilwoman Billy Wheeler, who waved the green flag for the half marathon and the 5K races, and our own county manager, Jim Deneen. He completed the challenge, which is the 13.1-mile half marathon. He completed it. And the 5K, which is right afterwards, so kudos to him. And one more thing that we want to brag about, our airport staff has a bowling team. And no, this is pretty big.
This is good.
Jay Cassins, who's the business development director at the airport, rolled a perfect 300 game last night.
That's amazing.
It was his first in his career. So Karen's also on that team. So anyway, that's.
Who were they competing against? That's what I want to know. Who did we kick their
I'm
ass?
not sure. It's a fun league. I actually sub for them sometimes, but you don't know too many people that can roll a 300. So congratulations. Oh, we? Okay. Any questions about the events?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
This time, with permission of the council, I'm going to allow Ms. Denny's to make her closing comments, as she has volunteered to go to the north, Iceland, or whatever you want to call it.
The Heatherland here.
The Heatherland.
Just a couple comments. Mr. Chair, I think you got an email, I think I was copied on it, on the Black Heritage Festival request for funding. I don't know, Councilwoman Cusack, Council, if the rest of you saw that there was a request for $1,000 for the Black Heritage Festival in New Smyrna Beach. That's up to you if you would like to do that. I asked them to send an email out to everybody with the information, so you can either talk about that now or at the end when council wants to. But I want to make sure that's on the radar. Also, and I want to thank my other colleagues because I think there's been discussion looking at taxes and the workshops going forward, Mr. Chair, on a possible rollback rate. I think I had agreement from at least Councilman Patterson, and I thought I heard Councilman Wheeler for sure, and Fred, Councilman Lowry say here a couple times when we were discussing this and Councilwoman Cusack, we're talking about our rollback rate, possible rollback rate. So before we get into our workshops, if it's okay with you, staff, I would like to get agreement to direct the manager to bring back to us during that time 3 scenarios for rollback this year for our workshop. One is a total rollback. One is for a half, just whatever that is, cut that in half. And then maybe what a third would be, and what the impact will be to the budget.
Okay.
But I will tell you going forward, I'm going to me personally, at this stage, I'm going to strongly support a full rollback. But if you could start collecting that information, so when it comes budget time and we get there, we can have everything that we need to know.
Okay.
Council does to make a decision. Council, are you agree? Yes. Are you okay with that? Yes.
I'd like to also see what it would be if we just hold the same rate, maintain the millage rate. I think we need to see the impacts, the negative impacts of what services are going to have to be cut, because I can probably guarantee you that some cuts will have to be made to try to go to that level. I mean, we've been all doing this a long time, and every time you look at it, it's just going to be difficult to try to do that. There's nothing wrong with saying you try to do that, but people are complaining about the property tax and they're not looking at the value that they're getting. I think that's the other side of the coin, the value that we receive, and the fact that most people, some of those yelling the loudest, are paying less in property taxes than they did 10 years ago. So as an individual, and I always look at my personal situation, am I paying more in taxes personally, or am I paying more because you say I am because of the rate? If I don't pay more, I'm not paying more. I'm not getting a tax increase. Now, I think more people need to look at it individually and say, wait a minute, my taxes went down last year. Even though you said they went up, they actually went down. So I'm willing to look at anything. I want to be as economical and thrifty as we can, but I don't want to see us to cut services that people expect. If they don't want those services, we can certainly cut them off. And I can find a number of places that I could probably cut totally, and but I think we'd have this chamber and every other chamber filled up if we cut those services out. So that's what we have to balance it against. I'm willing to look at it personally, and I know you'll do a good job of trying to.
I'll be glad to do that for you. My job, though, is obviously when you make those suggested, what I'll do is I'll suggest ways that I think we could try to accomplish that. My job is to try and make it as invisible and as painless as possible. So I will look at those things, but once you get into it, obviously there's different ways to skin that cat. But the first iteration, I always try to make it as painless as possible, and I'll try to do that.
And that's a good conversation for us to have a little deeper when we get the information in a workshop setting.
That would be great.
Okay, and this last.
By the way, this is the general fund first.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm speaking the general fund.
Our date for the workshop got scheduled. We don't have a date for the workshop.
We don't have one now
Yes.
because of, Ms. Host is
So
correct.
reschedule it.
Because we had to change our schedule to meet the needs of, so we'll have to set that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and the last one is a smaller one. I met with some constituents yesterday in New Smyrna Beach, and it's regarding the emergency order that we're still under. Actually, from the hurricane, the governor has extended it 7 times. I think it's 1 month at a time. We're probably in the last extension right now. And as you know, and I want to thank Jessica Winthrop for her great response to the citizens. We've got a group down there of about 18 homeowners, landowners that want to replenish and refill their sand down there with their own money. They're not asking us to fund it. They're not asking us to do anything. The problem is getting the permits. They're caught in that bureaucratic cycle of permitting that's just wrong. So I met with them. They gave me a whole bunch of information, and here's the basic. After listening to them, I agree with this. They're asking Volusia County as a government agency to step up in our emergency order with the beach and coastal divisions to assist homeowners or not just homeowners, anybody beachside, and the basic levels of permitting, that we would act, and we can, according to the state, we can be the local government agency administrator under the EFO when the government declares an emergency. So, in the EFO, and I learned all sorts of different new words here, the emergency final order, it's the every 30 day that they, so what they're basically saying is under an EFO, emergency final order, the county can be the administrator so that they can come directly to us for the permitting. This would have to go through legal, we would have to work on it, but these 2 hurricanes in 11 months, and then the northeaster, I mean, there's some real damage, and when we've got residents and owners that want to replenish themselves and do the work, they just can't get the permits. And so they're stuck in this cycle. So I would like us to make a positive direction that we would become the administrator. The state gives us that authority under this rule. I think it's time we exercise it, see what it looks like, so that we can help our citizens get out of the cycle and use their own money to help replenish their beach. And what's interesting on the compatible sand issue, they even have a source for compatible sand. You know, if you go to Jacksonville, it's $27 a cubic yard. Miami's $81. There's 2 sources, Jacksonville, Miami. Jacksonville's 27 a cubic yard, Miami's 81 a cubic yard, not including transportation, not including getting it here or wherever. But they actually have a source for the sand. So they don't want to bypass the permits. They just want to expedite it. And how do I do it? And I don't blame them. At this point in time, you know, we need to somehow accept the fact that the state has given us the authority, exercise it, and move in that direction for all of our citizens. Mr. Manager, can we take a strong look at
We'll
this?
take a look at it, and I'll let you know what the implications are. I have to make sure that we have the skill set, and that I'll have to see whether there's some hidden cost that I don't know about. We'll be glad to look at it.
I think this is job security for Mr. Eckert's department. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Just a quick question on the Black Heritage event in New Smyrna Beach. I thought that was to me personally because it didn't say, I don't recall it saying chair, and I knew that I didn't have $1,000 personally. Is that something that?
I think we all got it.
Huh?
We all got
But
it.
was it addressed to you as a council member?
We got a copy of it.
Okay.
Got an email.
I took at it as being personal. I don't know why.
It was the way it was, one
Just
of
the
them
way it
was,
was worded.
it was the way that was
If the
worded.
council would like, obviously, you can decide to make that contribution. This is a little different than we're normally used to. Usually, you do these sponsored events where you get a table, and that one we have a process for. If it's just a contribution, I think this is the better way to do it, is to bring it up and just ask if the council wants to do it. And if you do, then we'll just issue the check.
Okay. Ms. Cusack?
Mr. Chair, I move that we would give a contribution $1,000 to the.
Second.
Second by Denny's, motion made by Ms. Cusack. Any objection to the $1,000 contribution for the Black Heritage Month event in New Smyrna Beach? No objection? Motion passes. Thank you. Can you let Jessica do what she explained?
Oh, I'd be glad to.
Ms.
'cause
Dennis is going to
she's
leave.
leaving.
and
Jessica, would you come
I
up?
think she needs to hear this.
During my comments, I was going to have Jessica
We'll
surprise.
bypass that for a second.
Right.
And
She was going to give you a
this is-
surprise
this is-
update.
This is more important right now than an update on Votran.
I think I know why the chair thinks that.
Okay.
Jessica?
Good morning, Council. My name is Jessica Winterwerp, the Coastal Director for Volusia County. In the November 2nd council meeting, we set a few goals to increase the access of our beach patrons. If you remember, we set April 1st as our goal for opening the 7 additional beach ramps and opening of pass holder only ramps. We also set a goal on May 1st to move the annual pass sales from the toll booths to the beach sales. We have some exciting news. The stars have aligned. Our toll booths got delivered last week. We have been working very diligently on our signage. There are a couple things we have to do in-house to retrofit our toll booths, and we are staffing up. And on February 16th, we will be opening a couple of ramps. Seminole Avenue in Ormond Beach, Rockefeller Drive in Ormond Beach, Seaview Avenue in Daytona Beach will all open on the 16th of February as an entry-only ramp. So you can get on the beach. Those are some of our narrow ramps that we're just going to let you on, and then you can still access with the pedestrians and the bicycles safely. Boylston Avenue has had a small facelift. It will be opened on the 16th. That is in Daytona Beach. And Zelda Boulevard in Daytona Beach will also open on the 16th. There are 2 ramps that we're not going to be able to open on the 16th. One is Williams Avenue. That's in Daytona Beach, and it's currently under construction. We have the toll booths ready. Once construction's completed, we will deploy and we will open as soon as construction's done. The other one we have is River Beach Drive, which is in Ormond Beach. That suffered significant erosion from the blood blue full moon that we recently had at the beginning of the month. We are monitoring it, and we are placing sand as we are available. It's still underwater at a mid-low, so any material we place is at risk of being washed out immediately. In addition, 27th Avenue is also currently closed right now. We suffered very significant erosion from the New Year's Day nor'easter. We're monitoring tides and winds between beach safety staff and myself. We are putting eyes on this ramp every single day. We were holding out on doing sand placement because the 3 moon, blue, blood, and full that we had this past week. We were really worried about the impacts from that tide event. Once we can get back to a normal tide, hopefully within the next week or two, we will do sand placement to get the ramp open. In the interim, we have already issued a task assignment for one of our engineers to survey the ramp and then work with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, who is our regulatory agency, on any beach modifications to be done. Once the survey is completed, then we will put material on the beach so that we can put sand in and open that ramp up temporarily until we can get a temporary structural solution permitted by the Florida DEP. Once that is done, we are hoping to have the temporary structural modification done prior to turtle season. And then next council agenda, February 20th, we have a larger task assignment that will come to your attention for a vote on to do a permanent modification of the 27th Avenue ramp. What we are proposing in this interim structural solution is basically to modify the slope of the ramp to make it steeper so that it ends lower. Now, for the permanent solution, we are looking at retreating the end of the ramp further west, similar to your 3rd Avenue beach ramp, where it ends at a seawall as opposed to coming out about 75 to 100 feet past the seawall. So, April 1st, we will have our pass holder only ramps will open, and we've received our materials and our signage for the on-beach pass sales. They're scheduled to go in full effect countywide May 1st, but we are going to roll out some trial locations to help with the training and kind of get the word out in advance of the May 1st date.
May I just ask a question? Of the ramps, the Seaview, Boylston, and Zelda, was Seaview the only one that was entry only?
Seminole Avenue in Ormond Beach?
Oh, I was just talking about the ones in Daytona. That's okay.
Seaview is the only one in Daytona, yes, ma'am. Okay.
I want to thank you for accepting and exceeding my challenge of March 15th.
Good job.
Because I knew you could do it.
Mr. Chair, while
And the only reason I wanted to tag in on that was because the comment, the responses that I don't know how you can be so patient in your response. I can't, when people continue to complain about their walkovers not being done, not understanding the difficulties that we have in trying to replace it and wanting us to. Anyway, you do a great job. It's a good thing you're doing that job. I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be fired because I'd have nothing but complaints. Can't you see that you can't put a walkover when you've got to drop it 10 feet or something? Anyway, excellent job.
Mr. Chair, while she's here, a question came up, and I thought I'd just clarify it here while she's at the microphone. Question came up about we have people that are in the toll booth, and sometimes we'll have high tide come up, and you can't let people on the beach. We leave the people in the toll booth because it's all about customer service. Believe it or not, a great preponderance of the people that come to the toll booth when the tide is high tend most likely to be non-local because the local people figure it out. When the tide comes up, they can't drive on the beach. But a lot of them, so we get some, but we get a lot of non-local people. And when they come up, the last thing you want is for them to feel like we abandoned the booth and there's nobody to talk to. Well, what we do at that point is, one of the big questions is, where's the nearest restroom? And the other question for a lot of people is, I drove all the way up here, well, when can I get on? So we try to give them an estimate. The next thing is, what else can I do? So we tell them which parks and that are available, or where can I eat, or how can I entertain my kids? I can go down the whole list.
Right.
So their job is to make sure that we don't frustrate people, because that's the time they'll really get frustrated, is when they pull up after they drove here and there's nobody there and they're looking at, why can't I get on the beach?
Well, and to me, the question, there again, that's one of those silly questions. Why don't you just send them home and save the money? I mean, that's, okay, I've seen bank lines where you go through the teller and there's nobody there for 10 or 15 minutes, and then you've got people. But the service, I mean, how in the world would someone expect you can save money by sending people home for an hour or 2 hours and then tell them to come back? I mean, that's the kind of questions that just drive me nuts, and I'm glad I didn't have to answer that one.
I thought I'd let you know because
Thank you.
we have a reason for doing that, and that actually is sometimes the times when people are the most frustrated, when you need somebody there.
Okay, Ms. Poster.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to address that in open discussion and ask you that question, because I've received numerous emails on that and actually photographs from citizens of people sitting in the toll booths at the ramps with a just big sign that says ramps closed. So thank you for addressing that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I know Ms. Dennis has to leave, but I wanted her to hear the good news about the ramps being open because.
Absolutely.
All right. With that, we'll move to item 6.
Mr. Chair, this is the a fairly quick, short update that the council requested from Votran.
Because we have a liftoff at 1:30, I think.
Yes, we do. We will go through
Base shot.
fairly quickly. They're just going to give you a quick update of where you are with Votran. Thank you. Steve?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the County Council. It's just barely still morning here.
Yeah, don't look at your watch like you've got till 1:30, okay? That scared me when you started doing
I
that.
was looking to whether I was going to say good morning or good afternoon.
Okay, all right.
It's 11:56. Good morning. I'm Steve Scherer. I'm here representing Votran and RATP Dev to give you the update that you all requested on Votran services after the big update that we did back in March 2017, where you all directed us to implement some new service and make some changes. So you'll receive a brief update today on that. Quickly though, before I do that, I do want to touch on a couple items. Back in 2009, McDonald Transit is a name that you're all familiar with, partnered with a company called RATP Dev. RATP Dev is a worldwide public transportation provider and consultant. And we partnered with RATP Dev in 2009, and as of October 2017, RATP Dev went through a rebranding with all of its subsidiaries, McDonald Transit being one of those. So from here on out, you'll see RATP Dev, but that's still McDonald Transit, it's still Votran. It's simply a rebranding that allows all the subsidiaries to operate under one name. So we're still committed to providing the same quality of service and relationship that you've become accustomed to, simply under another name. So with that said, this is the slide that includes most of the meat and potatoes of what I think you'll find interesting. This is a status of service improvements that have either already been implemented at your direction or status of improvements that are coming. So the first item on the list was funding that was committed in last fiscal year. That was serviced on routes 60 and 20. So 60 is our cross-county connector, 20 is our north-south route on the west side of the county along the 1792 corridor. That service was improved from 60-minute frequency to 30-minute frequency back in January of 17. And I'm happy to report that ridership has increased on that route by over 21% since that service was implemented approximately a year ago. That service in last fiscal year was about a $1.1 million commitment to the general fund. In the next fiscal year that we're going to be preparing our budget for here soon, that will be about a $1.15 million ongoing commitment to continue that frequency of service. The next item was the same type of service frequency improvement on routes 7 and 11, improving those from 1 hour frequency to 30-minute frequency. That service actually began January the 29th, so just a few days ago, about a week ago. And so unfortunately, I don't have any great statistics to share with you right away, but we'll certainly keep you posted on how that improvement goes along. Next fiscal year, that'd be a $953,000 ongoing commitment to the general fund. Something else that was recently implemented, you all asked us to implement holiday service on Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. That has also been done. We did that beginning with Thanksgiving 2017. On those 3 holidays, there was a total service provided of about 4,000 boardings. When you compare to Memorial Day, Labor Day, Independence Day, that's about half of the ridership that we would experience on those other holidays. So it was the first year that service was operated on those 3 holidays, and we expect that that'll continue to improve as the years go by. But I know that the workforce certainly appreciated that. There's a lot of folks that rely on Votran to get to work, and being a hospitality-based industry in parts of the county, that certainly helped them to get to work and help those hoteliers and things like that. The next Next improvement that's included in this current budget is the new route in New Smyrna Beach along State Road 44. That service is scheduled to begin June 2018. That's along the timeline that we provided back about a year ago, so we're on schedule with that and looking forward to begin that. That's an ongoing commitment next fiscal year, $261,000. And the final commitment that we discussed last year was the new route on Howland Boulevard in Deltona. That has an anticipated start date of February 2019. That, of course, will depend upon you all's approval of the budget that we'll be preparing in the coming months. But that money is programmed in the 5-year forecast at your direction, and we intend on implementing that unless you direct us otherwise. With that would begin February 2019. So that's a financial commitment from the general fund of $338,000. So the most important piece on this slide is in the bottom right corner. This is a summary of the service enhancement total. The service that you all directed us to put into place or improve has an ongoing financial commitment of about $2.75 million on an annual basis. So that's the meat and potatoes of the cost of the services that we've improved or are going to improve. And with that, I'm going to introduce Rob Stevens to come up and visit with you really briefly about the new service that would begin in the next fiscal year on Howland Boulevard.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the council. It's warmed up a little since I got here, so I'm glad to hear that. So what this slide here will give you is sites that will be served by your new Howland Boulevard route. So it's just to remind you of the path it'll take and the sites it'll serve. Also, this is programmed in your 5-year forecast, and as Steve had mentioned before, if approved, the service will begin in February 2019. So this last slide here is just to give you a high-level overview of how the service outlined in the red there will interact with the existing service. There's no modification to the existing service, and just give you an idea of how that new route will interact with the other routes. And this concludes our update, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. We will move on to item 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have Jerry come up. This is part of the process where you continually get bites at the apple till there's nothing left but a core. You first agreed to the concept, then the design and the engineering, and now we're getting to the award of the actual contract for the GMP. And bottom line is, this is the building we're going to build. I'm happy to say this is the first project, capital project, that we promised we would do when we had money, when the economy came back, because it's so overdue. And Mr. Kramer is going to come up also, Chief Deputy Kramer, to give some comments on the building also from the sheriff's perspective. Jerry?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon now, Mr. Chair, members of council. Jerry Brenton, County Engineer. Very pleased to bring before you a contract for the construction of the replacement of the sheriff's evidence building. You know very well it's antiquated. It was an old jail and way over capacity or crammed over capacity. The new facility, as on this exhibit, it's out in the complex on Tiger Bay Road. Next slide will show a little bit of an enlargement. It's located behind the fire services complex, next to the sheriff's vehicle barn just to the west. And it would be an access road coming off Tiger Bay Road, which is today a dirt road. We're going to be paving it to the new complex. The location there, it's a secure facility with fencing, and as you'll see in another slide, it's got public access as well. Here's showing a little bit more of a rendering of the functionality of it. To the right, you can see there's a security gate to go around to the right-hand side of the facility. And to the left, all the way to the back left, is another security gate. General public cannot enter those, but in the front, you can see there is the evidence viewing room for the public. So it's got adequate parking, very different than out at the facility that they've got out on West 44. I'd like to point out way in the back on the right-hand side, there's additional outside parking that the sheriff had requested. At this time, the budget would not allow it to be a covered carport facility, but perhaps in the future that can be added. Next slide. This is a rendering of the front of the building. The general public, it's not one open that regularly to the general public, so it's a very functional design. And the same team that designed this and the construction contractor manager is the one that did the EOC and the Sheriff's Communications Center. So they worked as a great team on that project, and they've worked as a great team on this. We've been very pleased with it. The facility is approximately 30,000 square feet. It incorporates the latest state-of-the-art components and features. Our staff and the sheriff's staff visited different facilities around the nation to look at how it was operating. It's got a combination of automated and manual storage racks. It has plenty of storage into the future and has ability, the facility has enough room to add additional racks in the future if that ever is warranted. I'm very pleased to say that the guaranteed maximum price, which is what this contract is about, is just under the $12 million that they had been given as the maximum. Right. And we have over, what is it, 76% local subcontractors participation. That's based on the council's definition of what local is in the Central Florida area. I'm very pleased with that. Contract length is 13 months. We anticipate getting going in March and being completed in April or begin the move-in. The total budget, well, that's the construction. The total budget the council set was $13.5 million. And so in the agenda item, you can see what we have already incurred on architectural engineering and permits and that sort of thing. There's another roughly $355,000 that is for fixtures, furniture, and equipment that we will be bringing back to council for approval. So with that, I would recommend approval.
Ms. Post.
I'd like to ask Jerry just to clarify that the establishing the guaranteed maximum price for construction that's not the maximum price that they're going to spend. So it's for this facility, no changes, correction?
This,
I don't want them weaning off anything is what I'm saying to fit under the price.
No,
So that's what I just wanted to clarify.
that is the maximum price.
Okay.
And they've already bid out publicly, open bids, and assembled it so that you got a product that fit within our budget. And there's, I believe, a little over $300,000, which is a construction contingency that is available to the contractor with our approval for unexpected things that come up during the construction phase. If those are not needed, expended, they come back.
Okay. I'd like to say I'm very overjoyed to see this finally coming to fruition, and I would make a motion to approve the contract with Ajax Building Corporation to establish a guaranteed maximum price for construction of a new sheriff's office evidence storage facility, Part B.
Is there a second? Second, Wheeler. Any other discussion?
I was only going to add, Mr. Chair, that so that the public understands how we paid for this. We saved $5 million in cash that came out of the general fund as a one-time expenditure. The MSD, which is responsible for 8.5 of it, 1.5 was in cash. we issued debt in December for the other 7 million that'll be in the MSD. One of the concerns that I also have, I've never liked the original GMP process when I got here, and I think it was fraudulent with all kinds of issues. I do think the process we use now, where we expect them to bid out ahead of time, guarantees that they are capable of building it for what they say. One of the problems in the past was they would say that and then not bid it. So I feel pretty comfortable.
Would you explain the GMP or the?
It's the guaranteed maximum price.
Right, that's what this is.
Right. And what you're doing is by the fact that they've gone out.
Instead of the other way, which was just bidding it out, right?
Well, what you do is in some cases, people would argue what the GMP was before they bid the price. Gary can tell you, before they actually did the subcontracting bids, and then they'd find out that sounds good, but you can't get anybody to bid it for that.
Right.
So you'd have to up the price.
Right.
So in this case, what we do is it's sort of like belt and suspenders. We get them to do that before they have to do the guaranteed maximum price, which that way we make sure that we can afford it.
Right.
So I feel very comfortable that the process will go. And in response to Ms. Post, what I think is important is that we are going to get what we pay for, and we won't have to shortcut on the building.
Right.
The only concern I have, Mr. Chair, is that we had no choice but to borrow money for the MSD for a loan. It'll be a 20-year loan. It's not a big loan over 20 years, but it's still significant enough, and it's in a fund that, as you know, is fairly stressed.
Yeah.
But we need the building very badly.
Yes. Why it took so long.
Okay. And the motion's been made and seconded. Any objection to the motion? Who? I'm sorry?
Pat, and she was checking to make sure Pat and Lowry were there.
They're not, they tell us. Okay. Sorry.
I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm here too.
Yeah. Motion's been made and seconded, and without objection, the motion passes unanimously, and I know it's going to be a great project, and I'm excited about the 74% of the workforce doing the work will be local contractors or subcontractors, so that's always good for our economy. Thank you very much. With that, we will move to item unknown, which is public participation. I have no one wishing to make any comments, and we'll go to final comments. Mr. Deneen.
Now that Jessica spoke, I only have one, and that is, we received a letter from Conrad Realty Company. You probably got a copy of that. The fact of the matter is that we try to maintain our property. This was about our property. It's the old jail. We really do work hard to try and keep it clean. But any old property like that, especially when they have successful events, draws litter and stuff like that. So we're constantly doing that. But that's not the answer. The answer was to work with the city of DeLand on a plan. We started a couple years ago. Mr. Patterson actually may want to comment on this. He really was part of the original, let's push to work with them. But it's really got to be the city's master plan. So they actually put together their own master plan, have worked with us and shared it with us. And I am really happy to report that what they wanted to know in their master plan after they did it is, could we make a deal between them and us on the old jail versus the old building of theirs that we have the health department in across the way from the breezeway. What we like to do is see if we can do an even swap. So what we did is we talked to them in theory, because it hasn't come to the council yet, is if we give them credit for the fact they'll have to tear down a jail, that's worth about $200,000. And then you have about, the building's worth, well, the building's probably worth $500,000 plus the 2 lots across the street comes to about $700,000. If you deduct the $200,000, we'll give them credit that you have to take this, trying to help them, take the building down. That will leave the total real residual value at about $500,000. That's what their building is valued at, is $500,000. So what they plan on doing on March 5th is they plan on taking this plan, which they have worked on for a couple of years, they're going to take it to their council. If their council likes what they see, they are then going to come here and ask us to do this swap, which I'll have worked out and I'll be recommending it to you if you'd like to do it. Okay. So that's really what was the solution. The solution was to turn it into a permanent improvement, with the city being in control of that master plan as a partner. And that's what we're doing. So while they may not have known it in this letter, one, we work very hard to try and keep the property clean, but two, the real issue was working with the land to try and get a permanent solution. And if everything works out with the way they hope on March 5th, they'll be in here, and you'll be actually talking to them about this actual swap.
Okay. That's it?
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Deneen.
Mr. Eckert.
I'm sorry. Mr. Eckert.
Nothing, sir.
You finished so quickly, Mr. Deneen, I figured that you probably had something else. Dr. Lowry, any closing comments by phone?
No, I'm good. I just appreciate Jeff making it possible for me to be in attendance today.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson.
Yes, commenting on what Mr. Deneen just mentioned, because it was over 5 years ago that we started looking at this thing with the old jail of what to do with it. And nobody's been dragging their feet. We're just trying to get this thing done and over with. And I think it'll be a good deal for us and for the city also in the future. My other comment has to do, as many of you knew that I went to Tallahassee last week. I was feeling very well. When I went to Tallahassee, I came back unhappy and ill at the same time. The meeting that we were supposed to have had with the Secretary of Transportation for the state of Florida, John Booker and I got into the meeting. Mr. Dew, the secretary, did not show up, but we had conversation with staff. The final part of it was, well, they're just waiting to see before they do anything regarding the 3 amendments we have that we've been pushing for over a year now, that they want to see what the Sunrail Commission wants to do. And I'm back at it again. So our next meeting is towards the end of March. I've got some suggestions. I'm going to be talking with our county attorney over on what we may do, what we may need to do, what we can do, what we can get away with, whatever, anything we can do to try to move this thing along and get some relief if we have to. We're faced with the fact that the DeLand station never comes about. So that is pretty much all I have today.
Okay. Thank you, and thank both of you for tuning in and staying away with your cough and sore throat, and we appreciate it and look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Ms. Post.
Fred, Pat, if you're still there, feel better. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Since our last meeting, we had the grand opening of Hope Place, so I just wanted to address that. That was wonderful, and they're going to be starting soon. And I know that John Butler has talked about being a part of the process in getting someone transferred over and using their facilities very soon. So glad to hear that. I am actually headed out today as well to Tallahassee for Florida Association of Counties Conference, and have been working in Tallahassee. I know that Chair Kelly and I both went to Tallahassee for Volusia Days, and there are a number of things in Tallahassee that need to be addressed that greatly affect Volusia County right now. So I'm going to try and work on some of that, or continue to work on that. And that's it.
Okay.
So have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good trip. Don't come back sick.
Okay.
Ms. Wheeler.
I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Cusack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, on yesterday, Mrs. Wheeler and I went to Crane Lakes for a little chat with the residents of the mobile home parks. And I just wanted to thank staff for their help in setting up. We were able to show the film from our State of the County message, and also to have staff there to support us. And to you, Mr. Deneen, and to all of the staff, we certainly appreciate the fact that we were well armed with staff that could lead us through anything that we could have gotten ourselves into or out of. The only person who wasn't there was Donna Butler, and most of the questions for her. So we will be getting in contact with her. She's going to do a one-on-one with them at a later time. But thanks so much for being there and for that type of support for the council members. And then for Stone Island residents, is there some way that we could look at the costs and what this would cost the citizens, or some idea as to what could happen as far as helping the citizens? What would be our responsibility or could be their responsibility? I think that we need to not let this fall on deaf ears. We need to probably try to address this in some way. Maybe we can't do anything, but there may be some resources that we can direct them to. So I would like staff to look into helping us to help the residents on Stone Island with that road project. And lastly, the Spring Hill Resource Center, you know, you put in the funding, so we have committed for $250,000 of funding for that resource center. We have shortlisted on last week the architects that will come to do the meetings with the residents in Spring Hill or in Volusia County to talk about that resource center and what you'd like to see included in that. I just want you to know that we are moving the ball along as far as the resource center is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And just to comment on the Stone Island, I know we dealt with issues very similar to that with Durance Acres and Ormond Beach for years, because they wanted it the way they wanted it. They didn't want the city at that time to be taking over any of the roads, and I think there needs to be to look at the legal issues. That road was that way when they opted to build or be in there, and what our obligations are. I think we need to look at if nothing else, to try to find a way to direct them to a way to have whatever needs to be done in an economical method. And if there can be anything that, and I don't know whether it's, I don't think it's all paved. Is it about, George, you know?
I think it all has a very light paving in some of the areas. I mean, we have the road into the development.
That is paved.
That is paved, and that is public.
It doesn't flood.
And then you get, right, that does not flood, but then there's on the island itself, there's a network, mainly a big circular network. And that road, I believe, has like a thin layer. The one lady who had mentioned, you know, about it being taken over for maintenance this morning, you know, that's the decision that gets made back in when it was developed. You know, do you build it to a county standard and then be accepted for maintenance at the time? Or in this case here, they chose to have a lesser standard, and therefore that's why it remains private to this day.
Yeah, I don't think today we would allow a road to be built at 7 feet elevation right next to a water body.
That's correct, and like I say, there's a lot of history. There's folks, some mentioned that they've been there a while. Our staff has been working down there for over 20 years on various
I've seen it flood. It's been shown on the national news, I think, and
correct.
Years gone by.
Correct. You have houses that themselves are also very low and have a tendency to flood, as they had mentioned. So,
but if you can,
one point I will point out, and we will definitely do like a planning level estimate of that. One statement that was made about the emergency forces, though, back in '94, I'm not sure of the status of if that was a volunteer station or not, but I would just say that we have a lot of heavy equipment, and we routinely can get into to those homes, and some of the, like what she had described, would not happen today. We have high water vehicles and things that would be able to go in there, and so just we understand, especially from the levels that they experienced at this last flood, we would be prepared to handle that.
Okay. And with that, we'll end our first Tuesday meeting of the County Council at 12:25. Huh? I said enough during the meeting. Everybody have a nice rest of the day, and we've got a day or two before anything else happens, like Friday morning. Meeting adjourned at 12:25.